Chapter 230. Ling Family. A man snuck out of the Ling family's mansion. When he saw that no one had noticed him, he sprinted away. However, before he could leave the alley, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared in front of him. Seeing the middle-aged man, the man's expression froze, but he quickly recovered and smiled. "Dad, what are you doing?" This man was precisely Ling Han. The middle-aged man said in a low voice, "Are you going to the Azure Prefecture?" "Azure Province?" Ling Han's expression was blank. "What Qing Province? What am I going to do in Qingzhou?" The middle-aged man continued to stare at Ling Han, and did not speak. Finally, Ling Han smiled sheepishly. "Father, I'm just going out for a drink, really." The middle-aged man shook his head. "I know a little about the matter between you and that Yi Xian, Dao Yi. Since he can make all of you willingly call him Big Brother, he must not be an ordinary person. I will not stop you from associating with such a person." "But..." Ling Han pursed his lips. "Father, just say the but directly." The middle-aged man sighed. "Kid, do you know that this is the firmament world's wanted order? Once this order appears, it means that he is an enemy of the Realm Protection Alliance. It could even be said that they were enemies of the firmament world. Our Ling family isn't weak in the Central Divine Prefecture, but if we make an enemy out of the Realm Defense Alliance, we'll be overestimating ourselves." Ling Han was silent. The middle-aged man continued, "Now that the firmament world is in chaos, the world protectors have withdrawn from the Azure Water Province and the Azure Province. It is clear that they are abandoning these two provinces. That Yi Xian has allied with some people to protect the Azure Province. Do you think the World Protectors Alliance will let him go?" Ling Han smiled bitterly. "Father, he and I are brothers." The middle-aged man said, "You and I are father and son. And the Ling family, will you feel at ease if you implicate the Ling family?" Ling Han was silent for a long time. In the end, he looked at the middle-aged man, and said, "Father, Brother Yi has offended the Dark Realm and the Kuraki Academy, but he is still alive. Do you think he is an ordinary person? Moreover, according to my knowledge, he has already attained the Sword Emperor realm. Does our Central Divine Continent have a Sword Emperor less than 20 years old?" The middle-aged man was silent. Ling Han continued, "Father, I am a member of the Ling clan, and will never forget the Ling clan. I'm talking about camaraderie, and you're talking about benefits. It's fine, I'll talk from the perspective of benefits. Although Brother Yi is being targeted by the Realm Protection Alliance, from another point of view, this also proves that he is extraordinary. Otherwise, the Realm Protection Alliance would have directly killed him instead of issuing a wanted order." When he spoke up to hear, he walked over to the middle-aged man and said, "Moreover, Brother Yi is already the Sword Emperor. How could such a young Sword Emperor be ordinary in the future?" The middle-aged man looked at Ling Han. "What are you trying to say?" Ling Han said in a low voice, "The Ling clan removed my name, so I am no longer a member of the Ling clan. My actions in going to Qing province to provide support have nothing to do with the Ling clan, but my heart is still with the Ling clan. If Brother Yi and I can get through this, it would be a great thing for the Ling family to get to know a future Sword Celestial, or even a great Sword Celestial." The middle-aged man said coldly, "What if we can't?" Ling Han broke into a grin, and said, "I will only be sacrificed. And not implicate the family. What nonsense are you spouting?" The middle-aged man said angrily, "What do you mean by sacrificing yourself? You?" The old man thinks it's possible. At this time, an old man suddenly appeared on the scene. Behind the old man, there were two more people, both of whom were people with real power in the Ling clan. And the old man in the lead was the Ling clan's great elder, who had great power. The old man looked at Ling Han, "If you leave this place, I will remove your name from the Ling clan. If you are in trouble in the future, the Ling clan will not help you. Do you have no regrets?" Ling Han shook his head, no regrets. The old man nodded, go. Ling Han turned and ran, while the middle-aged man panicked and wanted to stop Ling Han, but was stopped by the old man. The middle-aged man glared at the old man, Great Elder, he's not your son, is he? The Great Elder shook his head. You should know his temper. If you don't let him go, he won't. If you don't let him go, he won't leave the matter at that. Moreover, what he said before might not be unreasonable. Yi Xian was able to survive after offending the Dark Realm and Kuraki Academy. This person is not ordinary, and is worth befriending. The middle-aged man shook his head, that's the Realm Protection Alliance, it's not the same. Why doesn't the Realm Protection Alliance dare to kill him directly? The Great Elder asked, because he is not ordinary, why can't the Ling clan take a gamble? With the friendship between Ling Han and him, if Yi Xian becomes a great sword celestial in the future, or even beyond, it will be a great thing for the Ling clan, isn't it? The middle-aged man was silent for a long time, and finally, he shook his head and sighed, he is my son. The Great Elder said softly, but he is also a member of the Ling clan, and seeking benefits for the Ling clan is his duty. Moreover, he has made up his mind, and you can't stop him. The middle-aged man looked at the end of the alley, and said softly, he's grown up. In front of the city gate, Lu Banzwang stood quietly, and beside her was Ling Han, Gan Wuwei, Lin Yunxian, and the others, 7 people. The bandit mercenary group and Yi Xian had a total of 9 people, and now there were 7 people here, which meant that there was still 1 person missing. Beside Lu Banzwang, Ling Han suddenly said, Big sister, have you contacted Yi Li yet? Lu Banzwang said calmly, wait for another 15 minutes, if he doesn't come, we'll leave. Ling Han nodded, okay. Lu Banzwang looked at everyone present, I think Big Sister already knows the whole story. This time, when we go to Qing province, we won't be facing ordinary great beasts, we'll be facing countless elites of the Azure Firmament world. If there are any difficulties, you can choose not to go, and no one will blame you. Since you're brothers, you'll understand. Not far away, Gan Wuwei shook his head, of course, if Brother Yi is in trouble, we'll leave. To be honest, this is not the right thing to do, and now that he is in trouble again, we can't just sit back and watch no matter what. Otherwise, what kind of brothers are we? Of course, if there are any difficulties, you can choose not to go, as Big Sister said, we're all brothers, we'll understand. Lin Yunxian suddenly said, those who came, I think there won't be any problems. But this Yi Li, I'm afraid he's in trouble. As she said this, she looked at Lu Banzwang, Big Sister, Yi Li usually doesn't like to talk, but at this critical moment, if he's not in trouble, he'll definitely stand up. I think he's in trouble, Big Sister, let's contact him and ask him. Lu Banzwang thought for a moment, then nodded. She crushed a voice-transmitting talisman, but there was no response. After 15 minutes, there was still no response, so Lu Banzwang said, let's go to Qing province. After saying this, everyone left, heading straight for Qing province. Blood Sect. After knowing that Yi Xian was on the Firmament World's wanted list, the whole Blood Sect was in an uproar. Inside the palace, the people of Blood Sect were all extremely excited. That Yi Xian is actually on the wanted list. Humph, the heavens want him dead. Yi Xian, the Blood Sect, must pay with his blood, charge into Qing province, capture Yi Xian alive, and wash away the shame of our Blood Sect. Inside the palace, everyone spoke one after another, it was very lively. However, Blood Sect's sect master, Xueyu, didn't say a word. An old man walked to Xueyu's side and softly said, Sect master doesn't seem happy? Xueyu slightly shook his head, a trace of confusion in his eyes. Yi Xian is only at the Divine Combination realm. To the Realm Defense Alliance, he's not even an ant. Why didn't the Realm Defense Alliance directly kill him and instead offered such a high reward? Are they afraid of something? The old man said in a deep voice, Sect Master, forgive me for being blunt, but no matter what, our blood sect should enter Qing province and get a share. As he said this, he glanced at the people in the palace. Sect master should know that they want to go to Qing province. Right now, Qing province is a place for us cultivators to get rich, and for our blood sect, it's an excellent place to cultivate. Some of the disciples who went to Kanglan province before came back with a great increase in their cultivation. Many of the disciples in the sect are envious. Sect master previously ordered us not to let our disciples go to Qing province. Many people are already resentful towards Qing province. Shuiyu glanced at the blood sect disciples below. Their eyes were filled with excitement. These disciples didn't have much desire for revenge, they just wanted to go to Qing province to get rich and cultivate. Next to Shuiyu, the old man continued, Sect master, the Qing prefecture doesn't have any realm protectors. For our sect, no, for the entire Devil Dao, it's an excellent place to practice cultivation. If we don't go there and miss this golden opportunity, it'll be a disaster for our sect. As he said this, he slightly paused, then continued, almost all the Devil Dao forces are going. Shuiyu glanced at the old man. Elder Mo also wants to go. The old man nodded. If there's enough blood, my blood transformation art will definitely reach a higher level. Shuiyu pondered for a moment, then stood up, to Qing province. The palace instantly erupted. Not only the blood sect, but countless families and sects of Qing province, especially the Devil Dao forces, also invaded Qing province. Because Qing province without a boundary protector was a dreamlike place for them to cultivate. In a few days at most, Qing province would become hell on earth. As for the frigid North sect, the entire sect was concealing the matter of Qing province. Obviously, they didn't want Yiling to know Yi Xian's current situation. Qing province. Somewhere in a mountain range, Lian Wanli was sprinting along with Yi Xian. Behind her and Yi Xian were more than a dozen Dharma realm cultivators and hundreds of experts. She wasn't afraid of anyone in a one-on-one fight, even if they were in the Dharma-controlling realm. However, there were too many people, and Yi Xian hadn't recovered yet, so she had no choice but to escape with Yi Xian. After an unknown period of time, she suddenly stopped, because in front of her was a towering mountain wall that pierced through the clouds. There was nowhere to run. Lian Wanli glanced at the people in front of her, then looked down at Yi Xian. I admire you very much, but there are so many of them, I can't beat them. Hand over Yi Xian. At this moment, the black-clothed old man suddenly said coldly, if you hand over Yi Xian, we can let you go. Lian Wanli's eyes lit up, you mean it? The black-clothed old man looked coldly at Lian Wanli. Of course. Lian Wanli didn't waste her breath and directly tossed Yi Xian towards the black-clothed old man. Everyone present was stunned. Is she really going to hand him over? The black-clothed old man was stunned as well. Obviously, he hadn't expected Lian Wanli to hand him over just like that. He instinctively wanted to catch it, but at this moment, the expression of an old man in the Dharma realm nearby changed drastically. Watch out. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xian, who was flying towards the black-clothed old man, suddenly stopped, and a figure charged towards him. It was Lian Wanli with the azure dragon saber in hand. The black-clothed old man's expression instantly changed when he saw this. At this moment, he didn't have time to think, and he suddenly punched forward with his right hand. At this moment, Lian Wanli's saber arrived. Hiss! Under the gazes of countless people, the black-clothed old man was directly slashed from the top of his head to the bottom. The black-clothed old man's body instantly split apart, and blood and internal organs sprayed all over the ground. Lian Wanli put away the azure dragon saber, turned around, and walked over to Yi Xian's side. She waved her hand, and a dragon throne appeared in front of her. She sat on the dragon throne with the azure dragon saber in her hand as she looked at the hundreds of people in front of her. Wait a moment, I'll be right there. As soon as she finished speaking, she took out a purple comb and gently combed her slightly messy hair. P.S. I recommend a novel called Medical Style Martial God. Don't miss it if you like urban novels. Many readers say that I rarely interact with readers. Today, I'll interact with everyone. Yes, everyone can talk to me about how handsome I am. If you think I'm so handsome that you can't describe it with words, then you can keep quiet, I understand. Genius in a second, remember this site's address. Mobile version. Chapter 231. The surroundings were deathly silent. Everyone was looking at Lian Wanli, who was combing her hair on the dragon throne. This was a classic example of fighting but not messing up one's hair. Of course, the main point wasn't the combing, but the fact that Lian Wanli had just instantly killed a Dharma realm expert. It was an instant kill, not a victory. Lian Wanli didn't look old, but her strength. She might even be a monstrous genius that was even more monstrous than Yi Xian. There was no one here who wasn't fearful. However, Yi Xian was right before them, and no one wanted to give up. Killing Yi Xian would make them rich instantly, and they would at least be able to save 100 years of hard work. Besides that, killing Yi Xian would allow them to gain fame. Presently, Yi Xian was famous in the firmament world, so killing him would definitely cause their fame to rise explosively and make their names known throughout the firmament world. Even then, some people still retreated. After they witnessed Lian Wanli's terrifying strength, they decisively chose to retreat. After all, Lian Wanli wasn't the only one in front of them, there was also Yi Xian. If Yi Xian was allowed to recover, then how terrifying would their strengths be? So, some people decisively chose to leave. However, there were only a few, and there were less than 10 of them. The rest were accumulating strength and were ready to attack at any moment. Nearby, after Lian Wanli finished combing her hair, she carried Yi Xian and placed him on the dragon throne, and then she held the azure dragon saber in her hand as she turned around and walked towards the hundreds of people. The eyes of the hundreds of people were filled with extreme fear when they witnessed this scene, and some of them couldn't help but take a few steps back. Lian Wanli didn't attack right away, and she suddenly stopped. She gazed at the hundreds of people and asked. Yi Xian is on the World Protector rankings, right? A Dharma realm expert from the Situ clan said in a low voice, since you know that Yi Xian is on the World Protector rankings, then you should be aware that Yi Xian has violated the rules of the world. So long as he's from the firmament world, then everyone has the right to kill him. If you insist on protecting him, then you're going against the entire firmament world. Lian Wanli thought for a moment and said, then should I hand him over to all of you? Everyone was stunned. Lian Wanli shook his head again. No, no. With such a high reward from the Realm Protection Alliance, if I hand him over to them, I will instantly become rich. The spectators revealed strange expressions when they heard this. In the beginning, they thought that Lian Wanli intended to protect Yi Xian, but now it would seem like he intends to take everything for himself. The few myriad lower realm experts from the Situ clan were also a little dumbfounded. Wasn't this woman going to protect Yi Xian? Lian Wanli looked at the crowd and said, let me tell you, this Yi Xian is mine. No one can take him away from me. We can't let her take it all for herself. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted. Take it all. Everyone came back to their senses and hurriedly agreed. Lian Wanli looked at the crowd coldly. This Yi Xian is in my hands. Why can't I take it for myself? Everyone who sees it has a share. Someone suddenly said, why did everyone come to Qing province with great difficulty? Naturally, it was for money. This Yi Xian is priceless, and any heaven-ranked treasure would be enough for us to eat for a lifetime if we were to obtain it. Yes. We can't let this woman take it all for herself. Everyone who sees it has a share. Could this woman be deliberately stalling for time? How could that be? This woman isn't stupid. Why would she go against the entire Azure world and the Realm Defense Alliance for Yi Xian? No one noticed that Yi Xian's fingers, who was lying on the dragon throne, trembled slightly. Lian Wanli held the Azure Dragon Saber with an expressionless face. No one knew what he was thinking. At this moment, an old man walked out. "Miss, everyone came from afar to seek wealth. How about this? You take the big share and we take the small share. How about this?" Although some people were a little unhappy, they didn't dare to say anything. Who told her to be so powerful? Lian Wanli pondered slightly as if he was considering it. Seeing this scene, the old man, "This chapter is not finished, please continue." The old man was delighted and felt that there was a chance. He immediately said, "Miss, you are a genius. We are not willing to be enemies with you. As long as you are willing to share this Yi Xian with us." Lian Wanli suddenly shook his head. "It's not impossible to share, but there are too many people. If we divide the spoils, how much can one person get? I have a suggestion. The Dharma realm can stay, and everyone can hand over this Yi Xian to the Realm Defense Alliance. Then, we can divide the bounty." Hearing this, the expressions of those who weren't in the Dharma realm turned extremely ugly. As for those in the Dharma realm, they seemed to be thinking about it. At this moment, a grey-robed old man from the Sidhu clan suddenly walked out and looked coldly at Lian Wanli. "I think you want to divide us." Divide? The spectators instantly became slightly vigilant when they heard this. Because they noticed that the situation was slightly off. Lian Wanli said indifferently, "Divide? Are you willing to share the bounty with these ants?" "In any case, I don't want to." The grey-robed old man stared at Lian Wanli. "If you don't want to divide us, that's fine. So long as you kill this Yi Xian, the Sidhu clan is willing to stand on your side. In any case, the Realm Defense Alliance wants dead people, not alive ones. How about it? Kill Yi Xian." Everyone was looking at Lian Wanli. Lian Wanli nodded, and then she pointed at Yi Xian who sat on the dragon throne. "He's right there. Go kill him yourself. Go kill him." The grey-robed old man's expression was slightly unsightly because he wasn't sure of Lian Wanli's true intentions. If Lian Wanli intended to protect Yi Xian, then he had no doubt that Lian Wanli would attack him. But if he didn't go over, then how would he know Lian Wanli's true intentions? Presently, the enmity between Yi Xian and the Sidhu clan could be said to be in a stalemate. At this moment, Yi Xian was at his weakest. So, if he didn't kill Yi Xian now, then he would probably have even fewer chances in the future. When he thought up to here, the grey-robed old man glanced at the others around him. They nodded slightly, and then they walked towards Yi Xian who sat on the dragon throne. 8 experts at the Dharma realm. Even though they were walking towards Yi Xian, their gazes were constantly locked onto Lian Wanli, and all of them were extremely vigilant. On the other hand, Lian Wanli held the Azure Dragon Saber in her hand and didn't have any intention of attacking. In next to no time, the 8 of them arrived before the dragon throne. The grey-robed old man turned around to glance at Lian Wanli, but Lian Wanli still didn't attack. The grey-robed old man relaxed when he saw this scene, and he relaxed his vigilance. Because it was too late even if Lian Wanli attacked now. The others around him were sufficient to resist Lian Wanli, whereas he only needed less than half a breath of time to kill Yi Xian. Right at this moment, Yi Xian who was lying on the dragon throne suddenly opened his eyes. Hiss! Hiss! 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes like 2 bolts of lightning. This sudden and unexpected event caused the grey-robed old man's expression to instantly change violently. All his attention was originally on Lian Wanli, so he'd utterly not expected that Yi Xian would suddenly attack. Under such circumstances, he could only rely on his instincts to cover his vital points with his arms. Hiss! Hiss! 2 rays of light directly chopped off his arms, and he seized this opportunity to retreat with the hope of pulling apart the distance between him and Yi Xian. However, a flying sword was even swifter than him, and it instantly pierced through the space between his brows. The surroundings fell silent. Everyone's gazes moved from Lian Wanli to the nearby dragon throne. Yi Xian sat on the dragon throne with his eyes closed, and his entire body emanated a strand of dark black sword insight. Yi Xian had awoken. Everyone was extremely vigilant. On the other hand, those experts at the Dharma realm who stood before Yi Xian had retreated successively as well, and they pulled apart the distance between them and Yi Xian. The Sword Emperor. Presently, Yi Xian was the Sword Emperor, and he was able to gather the energy of the heavens and the earth and gather the energy of space. From a certain perspective, Yi Xian was actually equivalent to the Dharma realm. If there wasn't a gap between their realms, then no one in the same realm of cultivation would be a match for Yi Xian. This chapter isn't finished, please continue to the next page. Meanwhile, a voice resounded from within the crowd, this person's sword insight is rather chaotic, and his aura is low. Obviously, he hasn't fully recovered from his injuries. If we still don't join forces now, then we'll only be slowly played to death by them while suspecting each other and being fearful of each other. Lian Wanli looked towards the center of the crowd, and her brows knit together slightly. Because she didn't see the person who spoke those words. Meanwhile, the voice resounded once more, attack together. No matter how monstrous their geniuses are, they'll definitely die. Situ clan, if all of you don't take the lead, then I'm afraid we'll never have the chance to avenge the Situ clan. The 7 experts from the Situ clan exchanged glances when they heard this, and then they charged directly at Yi Xian in the next moment. When they saw someone take the lead, the remaining experts instantly stopped holding back and charged over in succession. Lian Wanli walked over to Yi Xian with the azure dragon saber in her hand, and her face was expressionless as she gazed at the group that charged at her. The 7 experts at the 10,000 Dharma realm charged at the forefront, and the aura they released was like a torrent that pressed down on Yi Xian and Lian Wanli. The aura arrived before the person arrived. Lian Wanli tilted her head slightly and asked, "How long will it take?" 2 hours. Yi Xian replied. "Wait for your death." After she finished speaking, Lian Wanli turned around and left. Yi Xian hurriedly said again, 1 hour. Lian Wanli turned around again, and with the azure dragon saber in her hand, she suddenly slashed forward vertically. Azure dragon break. As soon as she finished speaking, a 300 m long azure saber energy suddenly slashed down from the sky, and within the saber energy, the soul of an azure dragon roared with its head raised. As soon as the saber energy appeared, the aura released by the 7 experts at the 10,000 Dharma realm instantly vanished. At the same time, the powerful saber energy directly shook the 7 people in front of her and pushed them over 300 m back. It should be said that the 7 of them took the initiative to retreat after they noticed the saber energy. Retreat for now. At that moment, the 7 of them practically made this decision at the same time. As for the others who charged over, they didn't have the ability to react, and the saber energy descended, boom. In an instant, the ground instantly cracked, and nearly a dozen people were instantly swallowed by the saber energy, and on the ground, there was a gully that was tens of feet deep. The power of one saber was so terrifying. And at this moment, there was a sudden change, and an afterimage flashed in the field. Law Imperial Realm. Lian Wanli's eyes narrowed slightly, and with one hand, she slashed forward with the saber. The saber fell, but was blocked by a finger. That finger blocked the blade, not the back of the saber. True Law Imperial Realm. Lian Wanli's pupils shrank slightly, and her right hand suddenly pressed down. The afterimage instantly retreated a distance of several feet, but the next moment, the person took a step forward, and with both hands holding the azure dragon saber in her hand, an afterimage suddenly appeared behind her without warning. True Law Imperial Realm. Two true law imperial realm. Moreover, they were top assassins. At this critical moment, Lien Wanli's right hand decisively abandoned the azure dragon saber, and her left hand turned around and swept horizontally. The moment she made her move, a cold light slashed down from her left shoulder. Pust! Lien Wanli's left arm instantly flew out, and she took the opportunity to dodge to the side. In the process, blood spurted out from her left shoulder in a beautiful arc. After Lien Wanli stopped, she glanced at her left shoulder, and there was nothing there. She was stunned. At this moment, not far away, the two true law imperial realm experts were about to attack Yi Xian, but a dragon's roar came from the side. The two turned to look at Lien Wanli, and with the azure dragon saber in her right hand, Lien Wanli walked in front of Yi Xian, and turned to look at the two true law imperial realm experts not far away. We agreed to buy him an hour, so an hour, not a breath less. Blood flowed from her left shoulder. End of this chapter. Chapter 232. Lien Wanli held the azure dragon saber in her right hand while the tip of the saber touched the ground, and the faint roar of a dragon resounded from the blade. She just stood before Yi Xian and refused to budge an inch. An old man stood before Lien Wanli. The old man had white hair, a face covered in wrinkles, and eyes that were sharp like an eagle's. Not too far away from the old man was a black-clothed man who floated in midair. His appearance couldn't be seen clearly, and his aura was completely absent. It was as if he didn't exist. A true defense realm expert. Not to mention Pine Prefecture, such an expert was a top-rate expert even in the Central Divine Prefecture. The white-haired old man sized up Lien Wanli and said indifferently, "They say that the #1 genius of Pine Prefecture is that in Lanxiu. Actually, you aren't inferior to her, but you've concealed your strength too deeply. If we hadn't joined forces, it would be extremely difficult to sever an arm of yours." Lien Wanli glanced at the white-haired old man and said with a smile, "I didn't expect that two true defensive Dharma realms would be deployed. Looks like you're a little afraid." The white-haired old man said indifferently, "He attained the Sword Emperor realm at such a young age. My Situ clan isn't afraid of such natural talent. However, it's better to eliminate him now just in case." The Situ clan. Lien Wanli glanced at the white-haired old man, and then she turned to look at the black-clothed man by the white-haired old man's side. "I presume you're from the dark dimension since you're able to conceal your aura to such an extent. All this while, this king thought that your dark world had completely disappeared. I never thought that you were waiting for an opportunity to make a move and prepare to kill Yi Xian." The black-clothed man said, "Miss Lien, I know you're not simple, and we've never thought of becoming enemies with you. Our only target is Yi Xian. We won't stop you if you leave. But don't blame us for being merciless if you continue meddling in our business. All for Yi Xian." Lien Wanli turned to look at Yi Xian. "I wouldn't have allied with you if I knew you had so many enemies. This king has suffered a great loss this time." After saying that, she turned to look at the man in black and the white-haired old man. As the saying goes, a day as husband and wife means 100 days of love. This king and him. Oh, this king has nothing to do with him, nothing to do with him. As she spoke to this point, she seemed to have flown into a rage out of humiliation. Immediately, she raised the azure dragon blade and charged towards the white-haired old man and his companion. The white-haired old man narrowed his eyes. "I gave you face, but you refused." With that, he waved his sleeves forward. Boom! The entire ground was lifted up in an instant, and like a wave, it instantly drowned out everything within 10,000 miles. Meanwhile, a saber suddenly tore through the air from the uprooted ground, and a strand of saber chi slashed towards the white-haired old man before the saber even arrived. The white-haired old man's face was as cold as frost. When the saber chi arrived above his head, he reached out with his right hand and swung it up and down. In an instant, the space in front of him rippled like a wave, and the saber chi that stretched for thousands of miles instantly twisted and folded before disappearing. True Defense Realm. The True Defense Realm could use space, but it could not physically change space. On the other hand, the True Defense Realm could distort all things in space, but it could not change the structure of space. As for the True Defense Realm, it was no longer just able to distort space, but could also change the structure of space. There were 3 realms, and each realm had a fundamental difference. And this difference was often difficult to overcome. The higher one went, the harder it was to challenge those of a higher realm. At this moment, Lien Wanli's saber chi was directly twisted, and then the old man changed the structure of space, using space to directly erase it. After the saber chi disappeared, Lien Wanli suddenly appeared above the old man's head. The old man was expressionless as he punched out. It was a very simple punch, but it contained a mysterious law of divine ability. The space where Lien Wanli was suddenly trembled, and the next moment, she was directly sent flying. This time, she flew directly in front of Yi Xian. As soon as she landed, the ground under her feet shook violently, and the ground within a radius of hundreds of feet cracked. It was extremely terrifying. But the next moment, Lien Wanli suddenly disappeared from where she was. The next moment, a long saber pierced through the air and appeared in front of the white-haired old man. On the long saber's blade, there was an angry green dragon roaring. The white-haired old man was expressionless as he took a step forward, and his right hand pointed forward with a finger. In his opinion, this finger would definitely be able to block the saber. The saber fell. Bang! The white-haired old man was instantly forced back more than 10 feet. When he stopped, the ground behind him instantly collapsed into a deep pit that was dozens of feet deep. At the same time, his 2 fingers had already been shattered. The white-haired old man's face was extremely gloomy. He lifted his head to look at Lien Wanli, and a murderous intent surged in his eyes. I have underestimated you. However, you have successfully angered the old man. Don't worry, the old man will not kill you. Later, the old man will make you wish you were dead. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged forward swiftly. As he charged, numerous seemingly corporeal afterimages appeared behind him. His speed was swift to the limit. The corners of Lien Wanli's mouth curled up slightly into a savage smile as she stood before Yi Xian. She suddenly leaped up and swiftly slashed down with the saber in her hand. Slash! Bang! A monstrous aura surged out from the azure dragon saber. At the same time, a green dragon suddenly struggled free from the saber and transformed into a ray of light that slashed down. Meanwhile, the old man arrived before her. Bang! An explosion that shook the heavens resounded, and then the 2 figures retreated explosively. The white-haired old man stopped after moving over 30 m back, whereas, Lien Wanli was forcefully pushed over 100 m back. She just stopped when a wisp of blood slowly seeped out from the corner of her mouth. On the other hand, blood was still flowing from her left shoulder. At this moment, she was in an extremely bad state. The injury on her left shoulder and the injury she suffered right now could be said to have worsened her injuries. She was at the true 10,000 transformation realm, but even she was unable to surmount a realm of cultivation to kill a true Imperial Law realm expert. Of course, if the old man and the black-haired old man hadn't joined forces and severed her arm at the beginning, then she might have given it a try. However, her chances of winning weren't great. In the distance, the white-haired old man glanced at his body. The clothes on his chest had split open, and there was a saber mark there. It wasn't deep, and it had just broken through his skin. The white-haired old man's expression was extremely gloomy when he witnessed this scene. Meanwhile, the black-clothed figure suddenly said, "Let's join forces to prevent any unexpected events from occurring." The white-haired old man hesitated for a moment before he nodded. Obviously, he didn't want any unexpected events to occur. At this moment, Yi Xian's greatest backer was gone, so it was the best time to kill Yi Xian. In next to no time, both of them charged directly at Lian Wanli and Yi Xian. This time, both of them didn't hold back at all, and they sought to kill with a single strike. They intended to kill Lian Wanli first, and then kill Yi Xian. In the distance, Lian Wanli raised the azure dragon saber and was about to charge out when a hand suddenly pulled her back. Lian Wanli turned her head, and Yi Xian had already stood up. He pulled Lian Wanli behind him and made her sit on the dragon throne. Lian Wanli looked straight at Yi Xian. This king's arm is gone. It's very uncomfortable. Yi Xian said softly, I'll kill them to vent your anger. With that, he turned to face the black-clothed figure and the white-haired old man. 1 against 2. Impossible. Yi Xian was extremely clear about this. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to defeat the two of them. It would be difficult for him to even fight one of them. The two of them were getting closer and closer. At this moment, a black Xiao Ta suddenly appeared between Yi Xian's brows. At the moment the black Xiao Ta appeared, Yi Xian's features instantly twisted. Prison Pagoda. The mysterious woman had once told him not to activate the prison pagoda rashly, especially when he didn't have any Dao laws. But at this moment, he had no choice but to fight with his life on the line. If he fought with his life on the line, he might have a chance, but if he didn't, he wouldn't have a chance at all. At the moment the prison pagoda appeared, the heavens and the earth suddenly darkened, and a ghastly aura instantly enveloped the surroundings. In an instant, everyone felt as if they'd fallen into purgatory. At the same time, a pitch-black prisoner character appeared above everyone's heads. P.S. The entire area was out of electricity due to the heavy snow. I ran over 10 kilometers with my computer, and finally found electricity. I don't know if you guys believe me. If you don't, I'll think of another. Chapter 233. The Pagoda of Hell. It could be said to be his greatest trump card, but he hadn't dared to use it until now. Because he'd tried once in the past, and he'd almost killed himself that time. But now, he had no choice but to use it. Because at this moment, he had no other choice. It was still the same, if he fought with his life on the line, he might be able to survive, but if he didn't, he would definitely lose his life. As for exactly how strong the Pagoda of Hell was, he had no idea because he didn't understand it at all. After the pagoda appeared, the expressions of the two true Imperial Magic Realm experts before Yi Xian instantly changed. The white-haired old man looked at Yi Xian with slight terror, or to be more precise, at the black Xiao Ta that had appeared between Yi Xian's brows. His eyes were filled with disbelief. What is that? It wasn't just the white-haired old man, everyone here was shocked as well. This was because everyone felt extremely uncomfortable after the appearance of this black tower. At this moment, Yi Xian felt like he was about to explode, and it was extremely painful. Moreover, he felt like something was flowing out of his body. Besides that, his soul was actually faintly discernible as if it was about to be separated from his body. Hold on. Yi Xian bit the tip of his tongue and forced himself to remain clear-headed. If he didn't hold on now, then he would really be finished. The black-clothed person by the white-haired old man's side suddenly said, "What is he going to do?" The white-haired old man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. He seems to be about to take out some sort of powerful treasure. "Do we attack?" asked the black-clothed person. The white-haired old man shook his head. "Let's wait for now. Since that thing was able to cause the heavens and earth to change color before it even appeared, it's definitely extraordinary. Let him take it out and let us see exactly what it is." When he spoke up to hear, a trace of greed flashed through his eyes. Because it was very likely that the treasure that Yi Xian was about to take out was an extraordinary treasure that was above the heaven grade. The white-haired old man was quite excited when he thought up to hear. The people behind the white-haired old man and the black-clothed person didn't leave. Even though they were slightly fearful, they weren't very afraid. Because in front of them, there were two true defensive Dharma realm experts. With these two experts at the front, they were naturally fearless. Just like that, everyone was waiting for Yi Xian to take out that divine item. Under everyone's gaze, the black Xiao Ta between Yi Xian's eyebrows gradually came out. At this moment, Yi Xian's facial features were distorted to an appalling degree. Even if Yi Ling were here, he wouldn't be able to recognize him immediately. That was because his facial features had been twisted to the point of being deformed. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. What exactly was this Yi Xian going to bring out? Everyone was curious. About a quarter of an hour later, the black Xiao Ta suddenly flashed out between Yi Xian's eyebrows. Everyone looked at the black Xiao Ta, their eyes filled with curiosity. Lil Pagoda floated quietly in the air. Right at this moment, Yi Xian, who was not far away, suddenly pointed angrily at the white-haired old man and the others and roared, "Kill them all." Just as everyone was still in a state of shock, the black pagoda suddenly shook violently. Above everyone's heads, the black prisoner character suddenly released a black beam of light. This black beam of light directly enveloped everyone. At this moment, no one was able to move. Not a single one of them could move. Even the white-haired old man and the black-clothed person who were at the true imperial magic realm were the same. This chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page, because no matter how they resisted, it was of no use. Under the black beam of light, they didn't even have the strength to move a finger. Moreover, they were all normal in all aspects, including Xian Qi and their own strength. However, they were unable to resist. That was what terrified them the most. The white-haired old man stared at Yi Xian and was practically roaring hysterically, "What is this? What is this?" Yi Xian hadn't even answered when the black Xiao Ta suddenly trembled, and then everyone here vanished. When they appeared again, they were within a black Xiao Ta. The first level of the pagoda of prisons. Everyone looked around with terror, and it was the same for the white-haired old man. He wanted to resist, but he was unable to. At this moment, the prisoner character above everyone's head suddenly turned blood red. The moment it turned blood red, everyone's body started to rot inch by inch. Numerous shrill cries resounded incessantly. The white-haired old man released his aura and strength madly, but it was of no use. Just like that, everyone gradually rotted away until they died. This was the most terrifying scene because they were watching themselves die. Shrill cries resounded incessantly within the pagoda of prisons. This continued for around 15 minutes before the pagoda of prisons was completely empty, and only a few hundred spatial rings remained. Obviously, the pagoda of prisons only targeted living beings and not those that didn't. Outside the pagoda of prisons, after sensing that everyone in the pagoda had disappeared, Yi Xian relaxed and collapsed. On the ground, Yi Xian lay silently. After around 15 minutes, his limbs suddenly began to twitch. At the same time, all the blood vessels in his body were violently trembling, as if they were about to burst out of his skin. It was an extremely shocking sight. Nearby, Lian Wanli quickly walked over to Yi Xian. Seeing Yi Xian's current appearance, she frowned. Backlash? She had naturally seen everything that had happened just now. The treasure that Yi Xian had taken out had taken everyone away, even the true imperial law realm. This sort of divine item definitely surpassed heaven rank. And Yi Xian was only at the divine unity realm. With his current realm, it was impossible for him to control this sort of divine item. If he forcefully used it, he would definitely suffer a backlash. After a moment of silence, Lian Wanli put away the azure dragon saber, picked up Yi Xian, and turned to leave. Around 15 minutes later, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared. Supreme Lu. At this moment, Supreme Lu's face was terrifyingly gloomy. When Yi Xian had taken out the pagoda of prisons, he hadn't been there because someone had been spying on him. So, he had gone to chase after them. But he hadn't caught anyone. And when he returned, everyone had disappeared. Someone was secretly helping Yi Xian. Supreme Lu glanced around coldly. Under the circumstances that the Realm Defense Alliance wanted Yi Xian dead, there was still someone who dared to secretly help Yi Xian. This was undoubtedly a blatant challenge to the Realm Defense Alliance's authority. However, since the other party dared to go against them for Yi Xian, it was definitely not an ordinary force. Supreme Lu fell silent for a long time before he said solemnly, "Yi Xian. Pass down the order to investigate Yi Xian again. Starting from Qingcheng, his parents and all his relatives must be investigated. Besides that, announce to the world that both Yi Xian and Lian Wanli have perished. Without them, the will of the people in Pine Prefecture will definitely disperse. Even if no one from the Central Divine Prefecture enters Pine Prefecture will still fall into chaos. Supreme Lu." A voice resounded from the sky. Supreme Lu glanced at the surroundings again, and his expression was slightly gloomy. Because it was absolutely not an ordinary force that was able to make a few hundred people vanish without a trace. Besides that, where exactly are Yi Xian and Lian Wanli? However, he didn't have the time to pay attention to them right now because he had something more important to attend to. It was to head to Azure Wave Prefecture and seize the quintessence of Azure Wave Prefecture. Because the time had come. Supreme Lu turned around and left. After he left, a shadow suddenly appeared here, and it glanced at the surroundings before vanishing without a trace. Presently, Pine Prefecture could be said to be the paradise for countless cultivators of the Central Divine Prefecture. Because they could do everything they wanted to do in the past but didn't dare to do here. Countless cloud vessels from the Central Divine Prefecture had entered Pine Prefecture, and numerous people were rushing over every single day. It was especially so for the Devil Dao. Practically all the sects, powers, and clans of the Devil Dao had rushed over here. Because Pine Prefecture was completely unrestrained, so it was undoubtedly a dreamland for them to cultivate in the Devil Dao. They didn't have to sneakily cultivate all sorts of vicious techniques here, didn't have to worry about the displeasure of the various powers, and didn't have to worry about being targeted by the Realm Defense Alliance. They could do as they pleased here, and it was definitely a superb place to cultivate for those who cultivated in the Devil Dao. Because many who cultivated in the Devil Dao emphasized on doing as they pleased. On the other hand, the news of Yi Xian and Lian Wanli's deaths swiftly spread throughout Pine Prefecture thanks to the Realm Defense Alliance's intentional promotion. At the moment they found out about their deaths, the entire prefecture instantly seethed with excitement. After all, the reason Pine Prefecture was able to maintain its current stability was mainly because of them. So long as Yi Xian was present, then the Jiang Kingdom, Ning Kingdom, and the surrounding kingdoms wouldn't dare to act rashly. So long as Lian Wanli was present, then the Great Cloud Empire wouldn't dare to act rashly. It could be said that the two of them had played a crucial role in stabilizing Pine Prefecture. But now, both of them were gone. For a time, Pine Prefecture was in an uproar, and countless people began to make all sorts of plans. Especially in the Great Cloud Empire, some of its vassals had already declared themselves kings. Pine Prefecture itself began to fall into chaos, and with the addition of some cultivators from the Divine Central Continent who had entered Pine Prefecture first, Pine Prefecture could be said to be growing more and more chaotic. Once most of the experts from the Divine Central Continent entered Pine Prefecture, it would truly become a living hell on Earth. Somewhere in the boundless sea, a cloud ship was flying swiftly, and the people on it were all disciples of the Joyful Union sect. There were over 100 of them. They were all the elites of the Joyful Union sect. In a private room on the cloud ship, the sect master of the Joyful Union sect stood silently by the window. Behind him stood an old man. After a long time, the sect master of the Joyful Union sect suddenly said, "It should be true. 2 true law realm experts and hundreds of experts, there's no way that Yi Xian could have survived." Moreover, this news has spread rapidly throughout Pine Prefecture and the Divine Central Continent, so it must be the work of the Realm Defense Alliance. Since it's their doing, it should be confirmed. So? Asked the old man. The sect master of the Joyful Union sect raised the corner of his mouth and sneered, "Enter Pine Prefecture and capture everyone from Blue Waves Academy alive. Leave the women, kill all the men, and hang their heads above the city gates of the Jiang Kingdom's imperial capital. The enmity of my Joyful Union sect will naturally be repaid 100-fold. The old man smiled faintly, "That's how it should be." A moment later, a voice suddenly came from the cloud ship. "Yi Xian is dead. Yi Xian is dead." Huh. Soon, loud and excited laughter came from the cloud ship. End of this chapter. Chapter 234. After an unknown amount of time, Yi Xian vaguely heard the sound of flowing water. His head felt heavy, as if it was filled with lead. Just like this, his consciousness began to blur again. He clenched his fists tightly and instinctively bit the tip of his tongue. The intense pain made him slightly clearer. At this moment, he also sensed his current location. Not far away from him was a waterfall. It was not large, only a few dozen feet wide and 60 feet tall. The water poured down into a small pool below, splashing everywhere. Next to the pool, a woman was sitting on a rock. The woman was leaning over the pool, her jade-white feet in the water. She gently swayed, allowing the water to slowly crash against them. In the mountains, there was the occasional sound of birds chirping. The sound of flowing water, the sound of birds, the pure and refined woman, peace. At this moment, Yi Xian's heart had never been so peaceful before. A moment later, he wanted to get up, but he found that he could not move at all. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. This backlash, at this moment, in front of the pond not far away, the woman seemed to have sensed something. She turned her head to look at Yi Xian. The next moment, the tip of her right foot tapped the surface of the water lightly. The water rippled, and her whole body floated up like a wisp of smoke. In the air, she tapped the surface of the water lightly again and floated towards Yi Xian. She was like a goddess who had descended from the heavens, pure and beautiful. Soon, the woman landed next to Yi Xian. She looked down at him and blinked her pretty eyes. "You're awake?" Yi Xian nodded, "Miss Lian. We're still alive." "That's great." Lian Wanli's right hand lightly brushed her hair behind her ear and she smiled, "That treasure of yours is really powerful. It killed 2 true Imperial Law Realm cultivators and hundreds of experts at once. What kind of treasure is that? How is it so powerful?" At this point, she seemed to think of something and she smiled apologetically, "Sorry, I asked too much." Yi Xian smiled, "I don't know what the World Prison Pagoda is either. It was left to me by my mother. This pagoda has its own space." "That's right, that Sword Celestial sister used to live in this pagoda, but she has already left." Seeing that Yi Xian wasn't hiding anything, Lian Wanli's smile suddenly brightened. She didn't know why, but she felt a little happy at this moment. She even temporarily forgot about her broken arm. She didn't ask again, because it was enough. Yi Xian suddenly said, "Miss Lian, you could have left earlier." Lian Wanli looked at Yi Xian. "Leave? If I leave, you'll die." Yi Xian said softly, "If you don't leave, you might die too." Lian Wanli shook her head. She sat beside Yi Xian and raised her head to look at the setting sun in the distant horizon. She said softly, "The Azure Province is in chaos. Many people are calculating their own interests, but they have never thought about the future of the Azure Province. However, you are willing to stand out at this critical moment. Not for your own benefit, but for the sake of protecting the Azure province. When she spoke up to this point, she withdrew her gaze and gazed at Yi Xian. She said with a smile, "You were very handsome when you resisted those experts from the Central Divine Prefecture. I suddenly realized that no matter how formidable a person is, if that person has no bottom line, doesn't feel pity for all living beings in the world, and only knows how to cultivate, seek the grand Tao, and seek immortality, then such a person can't be considered a person anymore. I look down upon such a person. Moreover, a person's strength can't be measured by strength sometimes. Then how should it be measured?" asked Yi Xian. Lian Wanli fell silent for a moment, and then she shook her head. "I don't know. However, I feel that you're very strong when you faced those experts from the Central Divine Prefecture by yourself and said that I, Yi Xian, will protect the Azure province." When she spoke up to hear, she gazed at Chen Shi. This chapter isn't finished. Please continue to the next page. There was a smile in Yi Xian's eyes. "I feel that a man can't be handsome or rich, but he can't be without backbone, and he can't be without responsibility." Yi Xian said seriously, "Miss Lian, I have all these qualities that you speak of. I'm finished. Am I too outstanding?" Lian Wanli suddenly pinched Yi Xian's cheek, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. "You're too shameless." Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, Lian Wanli took out a purple medicinal pill and fed it to Yi Xian. "Heal your injuries first. I'll stand guard for you." Yi Xian nodded. His top priority right now was to heal his injuries because the matter wasn't over yet. Moreover, he could only rely on himself for everything now. Healing. Yi Xian calmed his heart and carefully sensed everything within his body. What he feared the most wasn't the backlash, but the irreparable side effects of activating the prison pagoda. This was what he was most worried about at the moment. After carefully inspecting his body, he breathed a sigh of relief because he discovered that he was completely fine. "No." Yi Xian's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly looked inside the prison pagoda, and he was soon dumbfounded. A moment later, Yi Xian smiled bitterly. This was because he discovered that all the top-grade spirit stones that he had obtained earlier had disappeared. Not only had all his top-grade spirit stones disappeared, but even the top-grade spirit stones in the prison pagoda's storage rings had disappeared. Everything in those storage rings was still there, but there weren't any top-grade spirit stones in those storage rings. Needless to say, they had all been swallowed by the prison pagoda. Spirit Qi. It was clear that after activating the prison pagoda once, the prison pagoda needed a large amount of spirit Qi for some reason. However, this was far too much. He originally had several tens of millions of top-grade spirit stones, and there were at least several tens of millions of top-grade spirit stones in those storage rings in the prison pagoda. All of them had been swallowed. Fortunately, he was fine. This was already a great fortune. Yi Xian tried to contact the prison pagoda, but he discovered that there was no movement from the prison pagoda. Not only that, but his main body couldn't enter the prison pagoda, and he couldn't take out all the things in the prison pagoda. "It's closed?" Yi Xian was dumbfounded. Yi Xian was unwilling to give up, so he tried again, but he still couldn't enter the prison pagoda, and he couldn't even move the prison pagoda. Finally, he confirmed that the prison pagoda was really closed. Without the prison pagoda, it was equivalent to losing an ultimate trump card. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian suddenly turned to look at Lian Wanli, who was lighting a fire not far away. "Miss Lian, please give me a piece of spirit stone." Lian Wanli pointed a finger, and a spirit stone flew in front of Yi Xian. Then, she continued to light the fire. Not far away, as soon as Yi Xian got his hands on the spirit stone, it disappeared without a trace. "Gone." Yi Xian's expression froze. After a quarter of an hour, Yi Xian concluded. First, the prison pagoda was really closed. Second, the prison pagoda required a large amount of spirit energy. Third, if he wanted to reopen the prison pagoda, he might first need to provide it with enough spirit energy. Fourth, it was unknown how many supreme-grade spirit stones the prison pagoda needed. If it wasn't a lot, then it would be fine. If it needed hundreds of millions of supreme-grade spirit stones, where would he find so many supreme-grade spirit stones? Just thinking about it gave him a headache. Most importantly, he didn't know if activating the prison pagoda would affect the existences imprisoned in the prison pagoda. After a long time, Yi Xian sighed and stopped thinking about these problems. The most important thing now was this chapter is not finished, please continue to the next page, to heal his injuries. After taking the elixir given by Lian Wanli, a wave of extremely pure spirit energy slowly spread throughout his body. Under the nourishment of this pure spirit energy, his body began to slowly recover. Night fell slowly, and the surroundings were quiet. Under the starry sky, Yi Xian and Lian Wanli sat opposite each other. In front of them was a bonfire, and above the bonfire was a wild rabbit. It was golden and fragrant. The two did not immediately return to the Great Cloud Empire because their injuries had not fully recovered. Lian Wanli suddenly said, I've received news that a large number of experts from the Central Divine Prefecture have entered Azure Province. They have come with ill intentions. Yi Xian said softly, then let's make sure they don't return. Lian Wanli looked at Yi Xian, the corners of her mouth lifting slightly. Good. Sensing Lian Wanli's smile, Yi Xian was a little taken aback. Upon closer inspection, he realized that Lian Wanli was actually very good-looking. Her appearance was not particularly stunning, but upon closer inspection, one would find that she was very, very pleasing to the eye. The more one looked at her, the more interesting she became. At this moment, Lian Wanli suddenly asked, Are you looking at me? Yi Xian was taken aback, then nodded. Do I look good? Lian Wanli asked again. Yi Xian nodded again. You look good. Lian Wanli's expression suddenly became a little sad. How can I look good without an arm? Yi Xian said softly, I'm sorry. It could be said that Lian Wanli had lost her arm because of him. Lian Wanli said with a smile, It's not your fault. As she spoke, she lay on the ground, looked up at the starry sky, and said softly, Have a good rest. After tonight, we'll go back tomorrow morning. If you go back, what are you going to do? Yi Xian lay down as well. After a moment of silence, he said softly, Punish evil with evil. Ning Kingdom. Before daybreak, countless cloud ships suddenly entered the Ning Kingdom's territory and headed straight for the imperial capital. Among them were the Joyful Sect, the Joyful Union Sect, and the Blood Sect. These three sects had a blood feud with Yi Xian. This time, they naturally came for revenge. In addition, the Joyful Union Sect and the Joyful Union Sect were determined to capture Tuoba Yen. In a small pavilion in the Ning Kingdom's imperial palace. Tuoba Yen was dressed in white. She stood quietly in front of a memorial tablet. There were only 3 words on the memorial tablet, Husband Yi Xian. The moment she learned that Yi Xian had fallen, she set up this memorial tablet. She had been standing here for a day and a night. At daybreak, a voice suddenly came from outside the door. Your Majesty, several cloud ships have entered the Ning Kingdom's imperial capital. Your Majesty, please retreat immediately. Tuoba Yen walked in front of the memorial tablet. She gently stroked the memorial tablet and said softly, Don't worry, I will only have one man in my life, and that is you. After saying that, she turned and left. And in her sleeves were 2 pyroblast talismans. Great Ning Kingdom's imperial capital. 3 cloud ships stopped. Soon, nearly 300 people jumped off the cloud ships. They were all disciples of the Blood Sect, the Joyful Union Sect, and the Joyful Union Sect. The leader of the Blood Sect, Shuiyu, looked around and said with some greed, "Fresh blood." After a moment, his expression suddenly became ferocious. "Slaughter the city. P.S. There is something that has been hidden from everyone for a long time. Actually, I am that is, you know." End of this chapter. Chapter 235. Slaughter the city. When the Blood Sect's master, Shuiyu, spoke these words, the disciples of the Blood Sect instantly seethed with excitement. The Devil Dao. Even though the Devil Dao E faction was able to survive in the Central Divine Prefecture, they were still ostracized. Moreover, they didn't dare to take some extreme actions for fear of incurring public wrath. So, the Devil Dao E faction was rather restrained in the Central Divine Prefecture, and it was difficult for them to display their might. But now that they were in Pine Prefecture, they had no worries at all. There were no world protectors here, and there were no powers that could resist them here. They could do whatever they wanted here. The strong could be willful to the weak without any reason. Weakness was the original sin. Kill. The disciples of the Blood Sect charged into the city and started a massacre. They practically killed anyone they saw. There were troops in the city as well, but they were utterly useless before these cultivators. As for the Joyful Union Sect and the Joyful Sect, they didn't participate in the massacre and headed straight for the Ning Kingdom's imperial palace instead. They were determined to obtain the inner charm physique. In front of the Ning Kingdom's imperial palace, tens of thousands of soldiers had gathered here, and all of them were waiting in battle formation. Behind these soldiers was Tuoba Yen, and there were two more Dharma realm experts behind him. Under the gazes of countless people, the sect masters of the Joyful Union Sect and the Joyful Sect led their disciples to the entrance of the imperial palace. The moment they saw Tuoba Yen, the eyes of the Joyful Union Sect masters and the Joyful Gates sect masters blazed. Meanwhile, Tuoba Yen suddenly said, "Kill." As soon as he finished speaking, countless arrows shot like a storm towards the members of the Joyful Union Sect and the Joyful Sect. The Joyful Union Sect master laughed coldly. He waved his right hand, and a powerful force surged out from his palm. In an instant, all the arrows were actually destroyed by this force. The faces of the Ning Kingdom's soldiers instantly turned ghastly pale when they saw this. A law-controlling realm expert. Ordinary soldiers were completely defenseless in front of such a powerhouse, because a powerhouse in the spell-defensive realm had far exceeded the scope of ordinary warriors. The Joyful Union Sect master ignored the soldiers and looked at Tuoba Yen who stood nearby. "No one can protect you this time. Also, don't even think about committing suicide. If you dare to do so, this sect leader will wash the entire Ning country's imperial palace with blood and let them accompany you in death." Tuoba Yen remained expressionless. "Even if I surrender obediently, you won't let them go. There is no need to say anything more. My Ning Empire is weak, so we must die today. But, the people of my Ning Empire, even if we die, we must die with integrity." As her voice fell, the two pyroblast talismans in her sleeves suddenly trembled and were about to ignite and detonate. At this moment, two hands suddenly pressed down on her shoulders. In an instant, her whole body was unable to move. Tuoba Yen turned around and saw the two myriad Dharma realm experts behind her pressing down on her. When Tuoba Yen looked over, the two of them lowered their heads slightly. The old man lowered his head slightly and said softly, "I'm sorry." "Sorry?" Tuoba Yen was stunned, his eyes filled with disbelief. "Aunt Jiang, Elder Rua, you..." The old man was just about to speak when the old woman suddenly said, "The Double Happiness Sect has already agreed to return to the Central Divine Prefecture with them once the matter at the Pine Prefecture is resolved. Your Majesty, the Pine Prefecture is finished, and so is the Ning Empire. We have no choice but to find another way out." I hope your majesty can understand. Tuoba Yen laughed with self-ridicule. I've imagined countless people would betray me, but I never imagined that it would be the two of you. Because the two of them had watched her grow up, and they could be said to be her closest relatives. However, she hadn't expected that the newest traitor to her would be the person closest to her. The old woman didn't look at Tuoba Yen, and she just lowered her head slightly. Every man for himself, and the heavens and earth destroy him. What a good, every man for himself, heaven and earth destroy him. Meanwhile, a voice suddenly resounded. When they heard this voice, everyone was instantly stunned. They all turned their heads to look and saw a man slowly walking over. The man wore a long robe, held a sword in his hand, and carried a sword chest on his back. Yi Xian. Everyone was stunned when they saw Yi Xian. Didn't he perish? Tuoba Yen. She stared at Yi Xian while clenching her fists tightly. She just stared at him. Yi Xian walked towards Tuoba Yen, and the soldiers in front of Tuoba Yen hurriedly moved aside. Their eyes were filled with excitement as they gazed at Yi Xian. Yi Xian. Even though he was from the Jiang Kingdom, he was a state scholar of the Ning Kingdom. Moreover, even a blind man could discern that the relationship between Yi Xian and Tuoba Yen wasn't ordinary. On the other side, the members of the Double Happiness sect and Laughing sect were staring fixedly at Yi Xian as well. The youngest sword emperor of the Central Divine Prefecture. Obviously, they hadn't expected that Yi Xian was still alive. 2 true Defiance Law Realm experts, over a dozen Law Realm experts, and hundreds of top-rate experts had actually been unable to kill Yi Xian. When they thought up to this point, the expressions of the leaders of the Double Happiness sect and Laughing sect turned extremely unsightly. It didn't take long for Yi Xian to arrive in front of Tuoba Yen, who was still being held tightly by the old man and woman. Moreover, they had no intention of letting go. Conversely, they held him even tighter. Tuoba Yen asked, "When did they arrive?" "Almost 15 minutes ago." Yi Xian grinned. "I'd intended to make an appearance at the most critical moment and save the damsel in distress. However, I couldn't bear to watch them bully you like this." As soon as he finished speaking, the sword chest on his back trembled violently, and then a sword suddenly flew out. Hiss! The arm of the old man who held Tuoba Yen was instantly severed. The old woman's expression changed drastically, and she pulled Tuoba Yen towards her with the intention of using him as a shield. However, a sword suddenly pierced through the center of his forehead. The old woman retreated repeatedly until she stood before the threshold of the hall. She stared blankly at Yi Xian in the distance, so fast, everyone in the surroundings was dumbstruck. An instant kill of a 10,000 Dharma realm expert. Yi Xian could actually instantly kill a 10,000 Dharma realm expert. Nearby, the members of the Double Happiness sect and Laughing sect had extremely solemn expressions. Defeating a 10,000 Dharma realm expert wasn't scary, what was scary was an instant kill. Tuoba Yen glanced at the old woman with a rather complicated expression, but he didn't say anything. On the other side, the old man turned around and fled without a second thought. Just as Yi Xian was about to make a move, Tuoba Yen suddenly shook his head. "Forget it." Yi Xian turned to face Tuoba Yen. Tuoba Yen said softly, "Although they betrayed me this time, they've helped me countless times in the past. Let him go. From now on, we don't owe each other anything." Yi Xian nodded, "I'll listen to you." With that, he turned around and walked towards the members of the Double Happiness sect and Laughing sect. Seeing Yi Xian walk over, the sect master of the Double Happiness sect narrowed his eyes. "Yi Xian, I advise you not to meddle in other people's business, otherwise." Yi Xian suddenly disappeared, and in the next moment, a sword slashed down from above the sect master of the Double Happiness sect's head. One sword to decide life and death. Not only that, but the sword in his hand had also turned pitch black, which was the result of the evil sword intent. Not only that, but he also borrowed the power of heaven and earth. The power of this sword caused everyone's expression to change. Sensing the power of Yi Xian's sword, the sect master of the Double Happiness sect's expression instantly turned solemn. He didn't dare to be careless. He made a gesture with both hands, and the space above his head distorted. Spatial distortion. This was a special ability unique to those at the law-dominating realm, and he wasn't a true law-dominating realm expert. Therefore, he couldn't change the structure of space, and could only distort it. There was a world of difference between changing and distorting. However, this distortion couldn't distort Yi Xian's sword. Yi Xian's sword fell straight down, boom. Under everyone's gaze, a figure flew out. This figure was the sect master of the Double Happiness sect. The sect master of the Double Happiness sect flew out dozens of feet, and as soon as he stopped, Yi Xian appeared above his head again. Another sword slashed down. One sword to decide life and death again. At this moment, the sect master of the Double Happiness sect's face instantly turned pale. Boom! Under everyone's gaze, the sect master of the Double Happiness sect flew out again, and this time, before he could stop, a sword suddenly pierced between his eyebrows, nailing him to the ground. The scene instantly fell silent. Dead. A law-dominating realm expert died just like that? 3 swords. Although Yi Xian only used 3 swords, in fact, these 3 swords were not simple. Because first, he used the evil sword intent and the power of heaven and earth. In addition, he also used the powerful sword technique of one sword to decide life and death. Most importantly, his sword was a heaven-level sword. After reaching the Sword Emperor level, he was equivalent to the law-dominating realm. With a powerful sword technique, sword intent, and a heaven-level sword, he was completely capable of killing a law-dominating realm expert. Because at this moment, the power of his sword, the simple distortion of space, was useless against him. Only a true law-dominating realm expert who could change the structure of space could use this kind of divine ability to dissolve the power of his sword. And the sect master of the Double Happiness sect in front of him was not a true law-dominating realm expert. After killing the sect master of the Double Happiness sect with 3 swords, Yi Xian turned to look at the sect master of the Laughing sect not far away. The latter's expression changed, and he hurriedly said, "Retreat." With that, he turned and left with the people of the Laughing sect. In fact, he already had the intention to retreat. Because there were 2 true law-dominating realm experts among the people who went to kill Yi Xian. However, those people were gone, but Yi Xian was still alive. This matter was already abnormal. Now that he saw Yi Xian's terrifying strength, he had no more thoughts of fighting. This kind of genius, if there was no super force or super expert behind him, who would believe it? Leave decisively. The sect master of the Double Happiness sect did not hesitate. But Yi Xian did not have the intention to give up. He was most annoyed by this kind of thing. If he did not kill the enemy, then a few days later, the enemy would come back for revenge. Since they were already enemies, he should kill them all, and not leave any future troubles. The moment the sect master of the Laughing sect turned around, from the sword sheath behind Yi Xian, a sword soared into the sky, directly slashing at the sect master of the Laughing sect. Seeing that Yi Xian did not give up, the sect master's expression instantly became ferocious. He suddenly turned around, and his right foot forcefully stomped. Boom! The whole ground trembled violently, and a powerful force vibrated out of his body. At the same time, his hands formed a strange hand seal, and then he pressed it forward, angrily shouting, "Earth Defense Seal." As his voice fell, the ground under his feet suddenly gathered a powerful force, and then with his body as a medium, it slanted out from his hands. This force instantly condensed into a golden round shield in front of him. At this time, Yi Xian's flying sword directly slashed at this golden round shield. Boom! The round shield instantly cracked, and not only that, when it came into contact with Yi Xian's sword intent, this golden round shield began to quickly dissipate, evil thoughts sword intent. Perceiving this scene, the sect master of the laughing sect's complexion changed, and he was about to retreat, but at this time, Yi Xian had already arrived above his head. A sword slashed down. The sect master of the laughing sect's pupils shrank, and he suddenly put his hands together. This time, he actually forcibly stopped Yi Xian's sword, but his legs directly bent, and he almost knelt on the ground. At this time, from the sword sheath on Yi Xian's back, another sword flew out. Chi! In front of everyone's eyes, a ray of sword light pierced through the sect master of the laughing sect's eyebrows. The scene became quiet. Yi Xian waved his right hand, and the storage rings worn by the sect master of the Acacia sect and the sect master of the laughing sect suddenly flew into his hand, and after a glance, he was suddenly stunned. The two of them added up to more than 70 million top-quality spirit stones. As if discovering something, Yi Xian hurriedly spread his hands, and from the two storage rings, two colorful scrolls suddenly flew out and then steadily landed in his hands. In the left hand, Yin Yang Scripture, Volume 1. In the right hand, Yin Yang Scripture, Volume 2. Out of curiosity, Yi Xian opened one of the scrolls, and saw a line of large words, the way of Yin and Yang, the way of heaven and earth, the union of men and women. Below it, there were some vivid illustrations, but some of them were not suitable for children. At this time, Tuoba Yen walked over and asked, "What is this?" Yi Xian hurriedly closed it, and his expression was extremely serious. "I am a pure person." As he spoke, he put away the two scrolls without batting an eyelid. Genius 1 second to remember website. Mobile version. Chapter 236. Tuoba Yen took a glance at Yi Xian and did not speak. The disciples of Joyful Gate and Joyful Union sect turned and fled. Scared. At this moment, they were truly scared. Because the strength displayed by Yi Xian was too terrifying. Flee. Everyone only had one thought in their mind, and that was to flee. At this moment, 100 cavalrymen suddenly rushed over from the distant city gate. Blue Waves Dao soldiers. This cavalry was like a torrent, and everywhere they passed, they were unstoppable. A Blue Waves Dao soldier rushed in front of Yi Xian and jumped. After landing, he knelt on one knee and said excitedly, "Greetings, Dean." The moment they learned that Yi Xian had died, everyone in Blue Waves Academy felt as though they were struck by lightning, and their minds went blank. Because Yi Xian had always been the backbone and soul of Blue Waves Academy. Without Yi Xian, where would Blue Waves Academy go? At that moment, everyone in Blue Waves Academy was at a loss. After learning that Yi Xian was still alive, no one could understand the feelings of the students and Dao soldiers of Blue Waves Academy. Yi Xian supported the cavalrymen in front of him, "Pass down my order, don't let any of them go." The cavalryman cupped his fists, understood. After that, he turned and jumped onto the black flame horse. Then, he charged towards the disciples of Joyful Union sect and Joyful Gate. The disciples of Joyful Union sect and Joyful Gate were not weaklings, but at this moment, they were defeated in front of the 100 Blue Waves Dao soldiers. Of course, besides the strength of the Blue Waves Dao soldiers, there was another reason. At this moment, the disciples of Joyful Union sect and Joyful Gate were already scared out of their wits and had no desire to continue fighting. Many of them did not resist and only wanted to flee. Precisely because of this, the 200-plus disciples were defeated instantly. Otherwise, if both sides fought to the death, it was obviously impossible for the Blue Waves Dao soldiers to win so easily. Sensing the fighting strength of the Blue Waves Dao soldiers, Yi Xian was rather gratified because these Blue Waves Dao soldiers had become much stronger. Clearly, the money he gave was not spent in vain. Seeing that the outcome was decided, Yi Xian turned around and walked out of the palace with his sword in hand. However, Tuoba Yen followed them. Yi Xian stopped and faced Tuoba Yen. Go and rest for a while. Leave the rest to me. Tuoba Yen glanced at Yi Xian and whispered, be careful. With that, she turned around and left. After leaving the palace, Yi Xian walked alone on the street. Corpses could be seen everywhere on the streets. In troubled times, human lives were as cheap as grass. Yi Xian walked slowly. From a young age until now, especially after his mother left, he understood something. One must rely on oneself. At that time, he had worked very hard, because his hard work could change the fate of himself and his sister. Sister Sword Immortal had said something to him before she left, and it had left a deep impression on him. Some people, the more powerful they were, the more inhumane they became. That was because they had lived for far, far too long. They no longer had any respect for life. In their eyes, there were only the strong and the weak. The weak are prey to the strong. This was like a human eating pork. Would they consider the pig's feelings? No. Most of the time, the strong would not show any mercy to the weak. As the plain-dressed woman had said, the more a cultivator cultivated, the less humane they would be. Through the sword eye, Yi Xian scanned the surroundings and saw corpses everywhere. If he wasn't strong enough, he might end up like this one day in the future, a corpse lying on the street. At this moment, a scream suddenly sounded from afar. Yi Xian retracted his thoughts and looked up. Not far away, at the corner of the street, a man in black was dissecting the corpse of a man who was still breathing. He was very skilled and quickly pulled out a red heart. Seeing the heart, the man in black grinned. The 171st, at this point, he suddenly turned to look at Yi Xian. When he saw Yi Xian, his eyes lit up. The 172nd, before he finished speaking, his head suddenly flew off. As for Yi Xian, he had unknowingly appeared behind him. On the spirit elegant sword in his hand, a smear of blood slowly dripped down. When the blood dripped down, the man in black's head also fell to the ground. Yi Xian waved his right hand and the storage ring on the man's finger flew into his hand. He walked to the man lying on the ground. At this moment, the man had completely lost all signs of life. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian turned around and left. Not long after, the blood sect disciples in the city died one after another. Every one of them died in the same way, which was having their heads cut off. In front of the Ning country's city gate, the blood sect master, Shuiyu, had a gloomy expression and a cold aura exuded from his body. At this moment, a man in black suddenly appeared in front of Shuiyu. The man in black said in a deep voice, "Sect Master, I have received news that Yi Xian did not die. He has returned to the Ning country." The Acacia sect master and the Laughing sect master were both killed by him. Shuiyu looked at the man in black fiercely. He killed them alone? The man in black nodded, his voice trembling. Yes, this person has reached the Sword Emperor realm and holds a heaven-grade sword in his hand. Even a Dharma-controlling realm expert would find it difficult to contend against him. Shuiyu still wanted to say something, but at this moment, another man in black suddenly rushed over from afar. "Sect Master, this is bad. That Yi Xian is already rushing over here. At most, he will arrive here in 10 breaths. Retreat." Shuiyu did not hesitate and turned to leave. "Sect Master, there are still many disciples in the city," the man in black suddenly said. Shuiyu said fiercely, "There's no time to care. Leave as much as you can." After saying this, his figure trembled and disappeared not far away. At this moment, he really panicked. One must know that the people who went to kill Yi Xian were 2 Dharma-controlling realm experts, more than a dozen Dharma realm experts, and hundreds of experts. Yet now, there was no news of those people, but Yi Xian was still alive. Most importantly, Yi Xian could kill Dharma-controlling realm experts. In other words, Yi Xian had the ability to kill him now. Flee! Xueyu fled very quickly, and it didn't take long for him to completely vanish into the horizon. However, the disciples of the blood sect weren't as fast as him, and they just escaped the city gates when a ray of light descended in front of them. It was Yi Xian. The dozens of disciples of the blood sect had fearful expressions as they gazed at Yi Xian. The other experts of the divine central continent might not know much about Yi Xian, but the disciples of the blood sect were no strangers to Yi Xian. Because it was Yi Xian who had hung the heads of over 30 elite disciples of the blood sect outside the capital of the kingdom of Jiang. Meanwhile, an elder of the blood sect walked forward, and he glanced at Yi Xian. "We're willing to leave right now and never step foot into Pine Prefecture again." Meanwhile, a sword suddenly flew out from the sword chest on Yi Xian's back, and it flashed like a bolt of lightning. Hiss! The elder's head flew into the air. The expressions of all the disciples of the blood sect changed drastically, and they fled in all directions. Yi Xian shook his head. "Leave? Sorry, I'm too late." As soon as he finished speaking, he gestured with his hands, and then a few flying swords suddenly flew out from the sword chest on his back. Hiss! 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 The disciples of the blood sect fell successively in the surroundings. A slaughter. It was a complete slaughter. Not a single one of the fleeing disciples of the blood sect was able to resist Yi Xian's flying swords. In less than 15 minutes, all the disciples of the blood sect had fallen to the ground, and they died in the same way, their heads had been chopped off. In a short period of time, the ground had been dyed red with blood. Yi Xian pressed his fingers together and gestured lightly, and then the flying swords instantly flew back into the sword chest on his back. Meanwhile, over 100 Darkwave Dao soldiers arrived in front of Yi Xian, and then all the cavalrymen dismounted and knelt on one knee. Yi Xian put the Spirit Beauty sword away, wiped off the blood on his face, and then pointed at the city wall. "Hang the heads of everyone on the city wall of the imperial capital. Send my order to the entire Pine Prefecture. I, Yi Xian, have been very poor lately, and I welcome all of you to continue invading me." As he spoke, he put away the rings of everyone here, turned around, and left. It wasn't long before news of the incident at the kingdom of Ning had spread swiftly, and Yi Xian's words had spread as well. When they heard these words, some experts from the Central Divine Prefecture were instantly infuriated. How arrogant! Yi Xian was undoubtedly too arrogant. This was a blatant challenge to the people of the Divine Central Continent. Some of the experts from the Central Divine Prefecture were infuriated. How could they tolerate Yi Xian's provocation? Therefore, some people with decent strength had come to the kingdom of Ning in groups. In fact, they had come mostly because of the bounty. The bounty offered by the Realm Defense Alliance was too tempting. Killing Yi Xian was much more profitable than robbing several kingdoms. Brave men were bound to be motivated by generous rewards. Therefore, even though they knew that Yi Xian wasn't simple, they had still rushed over. Among these people, some were confident in their own strength, while others had been blinded by the bounty. However, there were also many who were fearful, especially the cultivators of the Divine Central Divine Prefecture who had originally been in the kingdom of Ning and the kingdom of Jiang. They'd withdrawn from these two kingdoms because Yi Xian had killed the sect masters of the Joyful Union sect and the Joyful Gate, and he'd even killed over 200 disciples of the two sections. Such strength was absolutely not something that an ordinary person could go against. To put it simply, most of the experts who had come to the kingdom of Ning were very confident in themselves. Of course, there were definitely some who were hot-headed. In the imperial palace of the Ning kingdom, Yi Xian didn't return to the kingdom of Jiang first, because he had more important things to do now, and that was to restore the prison pagoda as soon as possible. This time, his harvest was no less than 100 million top-grade spirit stones. He'd obtained 70 to 80 million from the sect masters of the Joyful Union sect and the Joyful Gate alone, and the rest of the disciples added up to tens of millions of top-grade spirit stones. To him, this was undoubtedly a considerable amount of wealth. In addition, there were many other treasures, such as spirit weapons, cultivation methods, and martial arts techniques. These were also a considerable amount of wealth and could be sold for at least tens of millions of top-grade spirit stones. In the room, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the bed and began to frantically devour top-grade spirit stones for the prison pagoda. However, the prison pagoda was like a bottomless pit. After devouring tens of millions of top-grade spirit stones, there was still no movement. Soon, in less than a quarter of an hour, more than 100 million top-grade spirit stones had been devoured cleanly. However, there was still no movement from the prison pagoda. Seeing this, Yi Xian's expression stiffened for a long time. In the end, he fell back with a look of despair on his face. "Big brother, you can't play me like this. I can't afford to raise you." Chapter 237. The prison pagoda had already devoured nearly 200 million supreme-grade spirit stones, but it hadn't moved at all. 200 million supreme-grade spirit stones. Even some of the first-rate clans and sects of the divine central continent might not be able to produce such a sum. That wasn't the most important problem. Most importantly, he didn't know how much the prison pagoda was going to devour, a bottomless pit. It really was a bottomless pit. Yi Xian already wanted to give up on this thing. If this went on, he probably wouldn't even be able to afford to eat dirt. It was even more terrifying than raising a Dao soldier. After a long while, Yi Xian left the room and came to a cultivation room. This was Tuoba Yan's personal cultivation room, and it was very quiet. Yi Xian sat down cross-legged and took out his sword case and sword. Mixed. At this moment, he felt that he was a bit mixed. This was because he was somewhat confused about his sword intent, sword Dao cultivation, sword Dao state of mind, and sword techniques. This kind of vagueness meant that he hadn't truly grasped it. What he needed to do now was to calm down and properly get to know himself. Sword intent. He decided to start with his sword intent. His current sword intent was divided into the good thought sword intent and the evil thought sword intent. The good thought sword intent focused on defense, while the evil thought sword intent focused on offense. The good thought sword intent wasn't very lethal, but it could be turned into a shield to protect oneself. A shield formed from the good thought sword intent was equivalent to a truth upper-grade spirit artifact. It could be said that even a Dharma realm expert would find it difficult to easily break through his good thought sword intent. The problem was that his current enemies were either Dharma realms, Dharma defensive realms, or true Dharma defensive realms. Therefore, if his good thought sword intent didn't improve, it would become more and more useless. However, he didn't have a way to improve it. In any case, he only knew that his sword intent would be stronger when he wanted to do something good, evil thought sword intent. Compared to the good will sword will, he preferred the evil will sword will, because the evil will sword will focused on offense and was extremely lethal. It could be said that the evil will sword will could increase his combat power by at least 30%. Without the evil will sword will, it would be impossible for him to kill someone in the Dharma defensive realm. In addition, the evil thought sword intent had a certain corrosive nature. Most things that came into contact with it would be annihilated. Even those at the Dharma controlling realm could barely withstand it. Apart from sword intent, there was also sword momentum. He was the sword emperor now, and he knew how to utilize the energy of the heavens and the earth. Of course, as far as he was concerned, he was only utilizing a small portion of the energy of the heavens and the earth. If he was really able to utilize the energy of the entire heavens and the earth, then this strike of his would probably be able to instantly annihilate a true imperial law realm expert. He had only just touched the threshold and was still far away from completely comprehending the power of heaven and earth. Next was the sword. Right now, he had 2 heaven-grade swords and 7 truth-grade swords. Among them, one was a superior-grade truth-grade sword, which was also known as the Spirit Elegance Sword. The rest were middle-grade truth-grade and low-grade truth-grade. Apart from that, there was also a true-grade sword sheath. And for him, to be able to kill a Dharma defensive realm cultivator in 3 strikes, these 2 heaven-class swords played a huge role. It could be said that these 2 heaven-grade swords had increased his combat power by at least 30%. Next, it was the sword technique. One sword to decide life and death. At the moment, he only knew this sword skill, and this sword skill was the key to him being able to kill Dharma defensive realm experts. Without this sword skill, it would be difficult for him to easily kill a Dharma defensive realm expert with just his sword intent and sword momentum, as well as the heaven-class swords. Thinking of this, Yi Xian was suddenly shocked, because he realized that his true strength was actually somewhat lacking. First of all, the heaven-class swords had increased his combat power by at least 30%, and the heaven-class swords were considered external objects. Without them, it meant that he had lost 30% of his combat power. In other words, to a certain extent, he was still relying on these external objects. Because without the heaven-class swords, he could only rely on the Spirit Elegance Sword. This chapter is not over, please continue to the next page. It would also be difficult for him to easily kill a Dharma defensive realm expert. Divine weapons were good, but if a country relied on it, then it would not be a good thing. And sword intent, sword momentum, sword technique, and the heart of the sword Tao were his true foundation. Other than that, his greatest trump card was undoubtedly the World Prison Pagoda. Once he activated the World Prison Pagoda, he could even easily kill a true Dharma defensive realm expert. However, there were 2 fatal problems. First, once he activated it, he would be heavily injured and unconscious. At that time, he would not be able to resist at all. Second, after that, the primordial pagoda would close, and he would need a large number of supreme spirit stones to recover. As for how much, it was still unknown. Third, activating the World Prison Pagoda might cause the seal within the pagoda to loosen. The last one was very, very fatal. He was not particularly clear about what exactly was locked within the pagoda, but he was very clear about one thing, and that was that these people were not easy to deal with. Now that the mysterious woman was not here, if the seal loosened, he would definitely not be able to survive. Therefore, this ultimate trump card, he did not dare to use it carelessly. Of course, if he was really going to die, he would not care so much. He would drag as many people as he could down with him to the grave. Collecting his thoughts, Yi Xian picked up a sword in front of him with his right hand. The next moment, a powerful force vibrated out from his sword. Sword force, this was his own. In the blink of an eye, the force within the sword suddenly skyrocketed. In an instant, the surrounding ground began to crack, and the entire cultivation room began to shake violently. Force of heaven and earth. This was borrowing force, the force of heaven and earth. At that moment, the 2 forces merged, and its power multiplied. After a moment of silence, the sword in Yi Xian's hand suddenly flew out. One sword to determine life and death. 3 forces, one's own sword force, the force of heaven and earth, and the force of sword skill. Wherever the sword passed, the space trembled, and the surrounding cultivation room began to crumble inch by inch. Then, it continued to shatter, until it was reduced to dust. This sword had already surpassed a heaven-level martial skill. After a moment, Yi Xian waved his right hand, and the sword flew back into his hand. At that moment, the cultivation room that he was in, which could accommodate 1,000 people, had turned into dust. However, he shook his head. Because he felt that this sword strike could become even stronger. If he could perfectly merge the 3 forces, the power of this sword could increase by a lot. Most importantly, he had not added the evil thoughts sword essence. Practice. Continue practicing. Yi Xian was about to attack again when a voice resounded from the side. Are you going to destroy my palace? Yi Xian turned his head and looked over. It was Tuoba Yen. At this moment, Tuoba Yen was not wearing a dragon robe. Instead, she wore a simple light yellow dress that revealed her shoulders in a V shape in the middle, revealing a touch of snow white. If it was just a little lower, it would be a boundless spring scenery. It had to be said that Tuoba Yen was extremely beautiful. Her features were picturesque, and her skin was whiter than snow. Especially since she had been in a high position for a long time, she carried the dignified aura of a king, and it was extremely easy to arouse the desire of men to conquer her. Tuoba Yen walked over to Yi Xian, and Yi Xian instantly smelled a delicate fragrance. This fragrance was not just the smell of perfume, but there was also a trace of body fragrance. Coupled with her clothes, it was obvious that Tuoba Yen had just taken a bath. Yi Xian was slightly restless, but he quickly suppressed it. As a swordsman, he still had that bit of willpower. Tuoba Yen glanced around. Did you do this? Yi Xian smiled embarrassedly. Sorry, I was too focused on cultivating and forgot where this place is. Tuoba Yan's expression was rather gloomy. You were still so weak when I met you that day, but now that we meet again, I'm no longer a match for you. Yi Xian smiled. I was almost killed by you that day. Hearing that, Tuoba Yen seemed to have thought of something. This chapter is not over. Please continue to the next page. She blushed. Due to the problem with her physique, she needed strong aphrodisiacs to suppress the awakening of her physique since she was young. But she did not expect that one day, sensing the change in Tuoba Yan's emotions, Yi Xian seemed to have thought of some embarrassing scenes, and the restlessness in his body rose again. In an instant, the atmosphere became a little awkward. Tuoba Yen glanced at Yi Xian. Clearly, she had also sensed the change in Yi Xian's emotions at this moment. She sighed softly and gently pulled the ribbon on her chest. In an instant, her clothes fell to the ground, and her beautiful body, as fair as jade, was exposed in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian was taken aback. What are you doing? Tuoba Yen glanced at Yi Xian. You've saved my Ning kingdom twice. I have nothing to repay you. If you like this body, you can have it. Hearing that, the restlessness in Yi Xian's body instantly disappeared without a trace. He sneered. Body? I came to save your Ning kingdom. Do you think I came for your body? Tuoba Yen looked at Yi Xian and did not say anything. Yi Xian shook his head. Lord Tuoba, you underestimate me, Yi Xian. Forget it. Since I'm such a person in your heart, I don't want to say anything more. Take care. With that, he put away his sword and turned to leave. Tuoba Yen was stunned. She wanted to say something, but Yi Xian had already disappeared not far away. She hurriedly changed into a long dress and chased after him, but Yi Xian was nowhere to be seen. Tuoba Yen was stunned on the spot and did not recover for a long time. After Yi Xian left the palace, he did not stay in the Ning kingdom. Instead, he went out of the city and prepared to find a place to cultivate. Now, he wanted to perfectly integrate his evil will sword intent, sword momentum, sword technique, and one sword to decide life and death. Simply put, he wanted to do these things to the limit. After leaving the city, he glanced around and was about to head toward the mountain range in the distance when an old man suddenly appeared in front of him. Dharma controlling realm. The old man stared coldly at Yi Xian. My Situ clan has 10 myriad Dharma realms, 1 true Dharma controlling realm, and my clan leader. Where are they now? Yi Xian was silent. The old man said in a deep voice, Did you kill them? Yi Xian sneered. do you think I can kill them? The old man frowned. The sword immortal behind you? Yi Xian said indifferently, do you think a sword immortal can kill them? And it was done without a sound. Hearing this, the old man's frown deepened. If it's not you, then who is it? Yi Xian shook his head. I don't dare to say. You won't believe me even if I do. The old man stared at Yi Xian. If you don't say it, my Situ clan will fight you to the death. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, I'll die if I say it, I'll die if I don't say it. I won't say it. Hearing this, the old man narrowed his eyes. Is it the Realm Defense Alliance? Yi Xian's expression changed drastically. What Realm Defense Alliance? I don't know. I don't know anything. I didn't say anything. Towards the end, he was already speaking incoherently, and his face was full of fear. P.S. Today is the third update. Let me tell my brothers in advance that there might not be an outbreak on the 15th because I'm still in the hospital and there are many things I have to deal with. I hope you can understand. Also, although there is no outbreak on the 15th, take it as me taking a leave this time, and I will make up for it in the future. In terms of updates, it has been 3 to 4 years since the Sword Domain. I have been updating on time every day without fail, and there will be an outbreak every month. I have never taken a leave between updating and outbreak. This time, there is really no other way. I really hope you can understand. If you really don't understand, then just scold me a little. If you don't use any vulgarities, then just scold me. If you really can't vent your anger, then come to the 17th floor of the first inpatient department of Guizhou Junyi Medical College. We just had a wave. Finally, I'm really sorry, and some friends, you can scold me, but don't involve your family. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 238. When he saw Yi Xian's expression, the old man's expression gradually turned ugly. It was very likely that the Realm Defense Alliance had done this. But why would the Realm Defense Alliance do this? The old man looked at Yi Xian again. They have no reason to do this. Are you deliberately misleading the old man? Yi Xian said nothing. He turned to leave, but the old man stood in front of him and did not let him go. The old man stared at Yi Xian. You don't want my Situ family to retaliate against you, do you? Yi Xian was expressionless. 4 things. First, why did Green Province's Kuraki Academy disappear without a trace, and why did its headquarters disappear without a trace? Second, why did the Situ family patriarch, a dozen or so Dharma realm experts, and hundreds of experts from the Divine Central Continent disappear for no reason? Third, why did the Realm Defense Alliance put me on the wanted list after these people disappeared? Fourth, why didn't they kill me directly, but put me on the wanted list instead? Think about it yourself. With that, he turned to leave. The old man clenched his fists tightly, his face gloomy. The first thing Yi Xian mentioned was rumored to be the doing of the Sword Immortal behind Yi Xian. However, according to the Situ family's investigation, Kuraki Academy's headquarters had paid a large fine to the Realm Defense Alliance. Since then, Kuraki Academy's headquarters had not recovered and could only rely on the Yin family to survive. If it was the doing of the people behind Yi Xian, why did Kuraki Academy's headquarters pay such a large fine to the Realm Defense Alliance? As for the second thing, the Situ family had sent a true defensive Dharma realm expert and a super assassin from the Dark World. In addition, the Situ family also had 10 Dharma realm experts and hundreds of experts from the Divine Central Continent. This lineup was extremely terrifying even in the Divine Central Continent. However, all of these people had disappeared without a trace. This was not something a Sword Immortal could do. And to kill so many people so easily, it must be a super force. The Realm Defense Alliance could definitely do it. Yi Xian's last 2 questions were, why did the Realm Protection Alliance put Yi Xian on the wanted list after these people disappeared? With the strength of the Realm Protection Alliance, wouldn't it be easy for them to kill Yi Xian? Why do they want to arrest him? Unnecessary action. It was obvious that the Realm Protecting Alliance was trying to frame Yi Xian and wanted Yi Xian to be the scapegoat. Thinking of this, the old man was suddenly enlightened. All the problems were solved. It was all the Realm Defense Alliance's doing. As for the purpose, he immediately thought of countless reasons, such as weakening the various forces of the Divine Central Continent, because the Realm Defense Alliance had never wanted the various forces of the Divine Central Continent to be too strong. This was a well-known fact. And Yi Xian was a scapegoat pushed out by the Realm Protection Alliance. Thinking of this, the old man's expression became incomparably ferocious. Old man, I was wondering how Tzu Yi Xian could annihilate so many experts of my Sidu clan. So it was your Realm Protection Alliance behind this. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left. He had to report this matter to the Sidu clan as soon as possible. Cultivation. In the boundless mountain range, Yi Xian crazily performed one sword to decide life and death. He wanted to cultivate this sword skill to the extreme. Cultivation. Swordsman. Swordsman. Apart from relying on comprehension, cultivation was also indispensable. Right now, he was madly practicing this move. This sword was only practiced for instant killing. It was fine if the sword was not drawn, but once it was drawn, it would definitely kill. While Yi Xian was madly cultivating, more and more cultivators of the Divine Central Continent entered Azure Province. Not only that, but there were also many aristocratic families and sections. After many people returned from Kanglan Province, their strength had not only skyrocketed, but they were also extremely wealthy. However, it was worth mentioning that ever since the old man from the Sidu clan who had spoken to Yi Xian had returned to the Divine Central Continent, not a single top force from the Divine Central Continent had entered Azure Province. The Divine Central Continent was divided into the Upper Realm and the Lower Realm. There were more forces in the Lower Realm and they were mixed, but the most famous ones were the 1 sect, 1 lineage, 1 sword, 3 sects, and 6 clans. The 1 sect was the Mystic Sect, the number 1 force in the Lower Realm of the Divine Central Continent. It was also a rather mysterious force because no one knew the location of the Mystic Sect's headquarters. They only knew that more than 6 people who had ranked first on the Martial Roll of Honor claimed to be from the Mystic Sect. After the Mystic Sect was the 1 lineage, which was the 10,000 Beast Mountain Range. It was a force from the Demon Realm and its true strength did not decline. After the 1 lineage was the 1 sword, which was the Firmament Sword Sect, the largest swordsman sect in the Firmament world. After them were the 3 sects, the Devil Sect, the Mystic Sound Sect, and the Icy North Sect. Of these 3 sects, the Devil Sect was the strongest because it had many demonic path forces attached to it, such as the Blood Sect, the Ghost Sect, and the Joyful Union Sect. Although many demonic path forces had entered Azure Province this time, the Devil Sect had not made any moves. Not only did the Devil Sect not make any moves, but none of the sect, 1 lineage, 3 sects, and 6 clans had invaded Azure Province. Things were very strange. The Realm Defense Alliance. The headquarters of the Realm Defense Alliance was located on Realm Guard Mountain. The mountain was 30 kilometers tall, and if one looked down from the peak, they would be able to see the entire mountain range. Exalt Lu sat silently within the Realm Defense Palace. An old man in embroidered robes sat before him, and the old man's body was slightly bowed as he spoke. After a long time, the old man stopped. Exalt Lu looked at the old man and said in a low voice, "Even the energy of the upper realm is unable to find out the origins of that woman in a plain dress?" The old man shook his head. "I don't have any leads. My Realm Defense Alliance has already investigated all the Sword Immortals, Grand Sword Immortals, and even the swordsmen who are above Grand Sword Immortals. However, there is no such person. It's like she had appeared out of thin air in my firmament world. Exalt Lu frowned deeply when he heard this. The woman in a plain dress. The Realm Defense Alliance had never given up on investigating this woman because she was truly too great of a threat to the Realm Defense Alliance. Moreover, he firmly believed that the woman who followed Yi Xian hadn't truly perished. However, after investigating for so long, there was no clue at all. In front of Exalt Lu, the old man said in a low voice, "This woman is too mysterious. Why don't we not provoke her?" Exalt Lu looked at the old man indifferently. She was the one who first killed several true defensive Dharma realm experts of my Realm Defense Alliance. She was the one who wanted to make life difficult for my Realm Defense Alliance. The old man was silent. In fact, from his point of view, it was not a big deal to suffer this loss, because the mysterious woman was too terrifying. Exalt Lu slowly closed his eyes. The higher-ups have already given the order. No matter what, we must investigate this woman's origins to prevent her from ruining our Realm Defense Alliance's plans. Send down the order to activate the star web and put a bounty on this person's head in all the heavenly star realms. Since we can't find her origins in the firmament world, then we'll look for her outside the firmament world. The old man smiled bitterly. Exalt Lu, this old man doesn't understand. Why must we look for her? Exalt Lu said softly, she destroyed thousands of years of Exalt Lu's hard work with a single sword strike. If Exalt Lu's true body wasn't in this realm, how could she be so arrogant? Exalt Lu has already given the order to search for this person. When his true body returns, all the grudges will be settled. Hearing this, the old man smiled slightly. Understood. Exalt Lu seemed to have thought of something. He opened his eyes and looked at the old man. The 3 sects and 6 families still haven't made a move? The old man nodded. Not even the devil sect. This matter is quite strange. Lord Lu sneered, you are all old foxes. Pass down my order, whoever kills Yi Xian will be rewarded with 2 scrolls of a heaven-level cultivation method, 2 heaven-level martial techniques, 2 heaven-level spirit weapons, 500 million top-tier spirit stones, 20 jade spirit veins, and a realm protection token. I don't believe they won't be tempted. Realm Guard Token. The old man's face changed slightly. This Realm Guard Token wasn't a super treasure, but it had one use. It could ask the Realm Defense Alliance to help once. Ask the Realm Defense Alliance to help once. This use was even more precious than a heaven-class supreme treasure. Soon, the news of the Realm Defense Alliance's reward spread throughout the firmament world. In an instant, the entire firmament world was in an uproar. This time, the name Yi Xian really spread throughout the firmament world. Whether it was a human or a ghost, a demon or a demon, they all remembered this name and wanted his head. At this moment, many people entered Qingzhou not for the riches of Qingzhou, but for Yi Xian's head. There was a saying in Qingzhou, kill Yi Xian, rich 3rd generation. It was worth mentioning that the drunken immortal inn had completely withdrawn from Qingzhou. In the vast mountain range, Yi Xian, who was cultivating, suddenly stopped. He turned around and saw an old man standing not far away. 5th Floor Master. At this moment, 5th Floor Master was already at the Dharma defensive realm. 5th Floor Master walked in front of Yi Xian. He waved his right hand and a table appeared in front of the two. On the table, there was a wine pot and 2 wine cups. 5th Floor Master filled the wine cups and drank a cup first. He smiled bitterly, little friend, I'm sorry. Drunken Immortal Inn has completely withdrawn from Qingzhou. I won't be able to help you in the future. Yi Xian picked up the wine cup and drank it. Then, he smiled and said, I understand. 5th Floor Master laughed, little friend, you have a good personality. After saying that, he turned around and left. But after a few steps, he stopped again. Oh right. Now, I will have to call you Dean. Yi Xian was stunned. Why? Fifth floor master laughed and said, because the old man has already withdrawn from Drunken Immortal Inn and joined Blue Waves Academy. Huh. After saying that, he disappeared at the end of the horizon. In the same place, Yi Xian didn't speak for a long time. After a long time, Yi Xian turned around and raised his finger. 10 feet away, a leaf fell silently. And in the sky above the leaf, a sword was floating. Now, the speed of his flying sword was at least 2 times faster than before. Especially, if the distance of the flying sword was within 10 feet, the speed could be even faster. It was so fast that he could only feel the blurry trajectory of the flying sword. Flying sword. One sword to determine life and death. One sword to determine life and death was taught to him by the mysterious woman. As for the flying sword, it was self-taught. This time, the biggest gain was that he strengthened the flying sword. Because when he activated the flying sword, he added sword intent and sword force. The effect was somewhat unexpected. Now, if he activated the flying sword, even if he was in the Dharma defensive realm, he had 90% confidence that he could kill the opponent within 10 feet. And this flying sword, he gave it a name. 1 kill within 10 feet. Just when Yi Xian was about to leave, an old man suddenly appeared not far away from Yi Xian. The old man wore a loose robe and had a head full of white hair. His face was deeply wrinkled and crisscrossed. He looked incomparably old. However, his aura was unfathomable like an ocean. The old man glanced at Yi Xian and spoke indifferently. The old man is the previous patriarch of the Situ clan, Situ Ming. Yi Xian's expression was calm. What do you need? Situ Ming stared at Yi Xian for a long time before he said, the old man wants to meet the sword immortal behind you. Yi Xian shook his head. I can't. Situ Ming asked, why? Yi Xian's face instantly turned icy cold. He was heavily injured by the Realm Defense Alliance and is currently recuperating. Situ Ming fell silent for a long time before he said, were all the members of my Situ clan really slaughtered by the Realm Defense Alliance? Yi Xian shook his head, no. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Situ Ming stood in front of Yi Xian instead. Yi Xian cupped his fists. I can't afford to offend the Realm Defense Alliance. Please spare me. Situ Ming spoke in a low voice. Do you think the Realm Defense Alliance will let you go? Yi Xian remained silent. Situ Ming continued, since they want to make you a scapegoat, they will absolutely not let you go. Since that's the case, why don't you fight them to the death? Yi Xian spoke indifferently, I can't. Situ Ming took a step forward and looked Yi Xian in the eyes, my Situ clan will help you. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 239. The Situ clan wants to destroy the Realm Defense Alliance? Yi Xian was slightly dazed. Situ Ming stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, you're a smart man, and you should be able to see the current situation clearly. The Realm Defense Alliance has put a huge bounty on your life. Even though they want to use you to cause conflict between the various powers of the Central Divine Prefecture, do you think they'll let you go? Do you think they'll let you go? Yi Xian clenched his fists tightly, and his face was livid. When he saw Yi Xian like this, Situ Ming hurriedly said, they definitely won't let you go. Since you're going to die either way, why not fight the Realm Defense Alliance? If you fight, you might be able to survive. Yi Xian shook his head. I can't. Situ Ming said, the old man said that my Situ clan will help you. It isn't just my Situ clan, there are other powers that you don't know about that will help you from the shadows as well. Yi Xian looked up at Situ Ming. Why should I believe you? Situ Ming said indifferently, do you have a better choice? No, you don't. The Sword Immortal behind you is clearly unable to resist the Realm Defense Alliance. Only by joining forces with us will you have a chance at survival. Yi Xian fell silent as if he was considering it. Situ Ming continued. Only death awaits you if you don't have our help. Yi Xian said in a low voice, how will you help me? Situ Ming looked up and said coldly, the Realm Defense Alliance wants to destroy Azure Prefecture, so we won't let them. We'll protect Azure Prefecture. Yi Xian laughed coldly. Didn't you say that destroying Azure Prefecture and Azure Wave Prefecture was to protect the Central Divine Prefecture? Situ Ming said in a low voice, we thought so as well. That's why we supported the Realm Defense Alliance. But later on, we realized that the Realm Defense Alliance isn't protecting the Central Divine Prefecture at all, but the quintessence of Azure Prefecture and Azure Wave Prefecture. The old man doesn't know what they want the quintessence for, but it's definitely not something good. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. Why don't they just take it by force? Why did you have to make it so troublesome? Situ Ming sneered, the origin of the Azure Province is hidden deep underground and has the ability to protect itself. If it doesn't come out on its own, even experts above the Dharma control realm won't be able to find it. However, if enough blood seeped into the ground, it would automatically escape from the ground because it hated the smell of blood. However, this required a lot of fresh blood. Apart from that, the Realm Defense Alliance clearly wants to be a prostitute while also maintaining their chastity. You have to know that in the hearts of the people of Azure Firmament World, they still represent justice. Yi Xian was silent for a moment, then he shook his head and sighed. Who knows how many experts from the Central Divine Prefecture have come to Azure Province? How could Azure Province be so easily defended? Situ Ming glanced at Yi Xian. The top forces of the Divine Central Continent won't come. As for the other forces, if they have true Imperial Law Realm experts, we'll help you deal with them. However, you'll have to deal with the rest on your own. Yi Xian nodded. Understood. He naturally understood that the Situ clan and the powers behind the Situ clan clearly didn't want to fight the Realm Defense Alliance head-on. So, they'd asked him to come here. To put it bluntly, they wanted to use him to deal with the Realm Defense Alliance. Yi Xian lowered his head slightly with a calm expression, and no one knew what he was thinking. Situ Ming frowned when he saw that Yi Xian still hadn't given him an answer, and he spoke coldly, if you're still afraid now, then only death awaits you. You might have a chance to live if you work together with us. Yi Xian slowly clenched his fists while a slightly solemn expression appeared on his face. He seemed to be struggling with himself. A short while later, he took a deep breath and said, all right, I'll work together with all of you. Situ Ming instantly heaved a sigh of relief when he heard this. Because they didn't want to go head-on against the Realm Defense Alliance for now, but they didn't want the Realm Defense Alliance to continue acting as they pleased. So, the only way was to find someone to keep the Realm Defense Alliance busy. Yi Xian just happened to be a suitable person to do that. The Realm Defense Alliance wanted to use Yi Xian to make them kill each other, so why couldn't they use Yi Xian to go against the Realm Defense Alliance? When he thought up to here, he glanced at Yi Xian and laughed coldly in his heart. Because Yi Xian just happened to be a suitable pawn. Meanwhile, Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, according to my knowledge, a large number of cultivators from the Central Divine Prefecture have entered Pine Prefecture, and their overall strength is much greater than the cultivators of Pine Prefecture. So, it's very difficult to stop them from plundering and plundering. Situ Ming gazed at Yi Xian and said, you can join forces with all the cultivators of Pine Prefecture. So long as you join forces, then those fellows won't be able to do as they please. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice, I need money. Situ Ming frowned when he heard this. Yi Xian spoke indifferently, who's our enemy? The Realm Defense Alliance. Since we're going against them, then we have to be prepared to sacrifice something. Otherwise, we can only wait for death. Situ Ming fell silent for a long time before he said, "How much do you need?" "Not much." Yi Xian said, 1 billion top-grade spirit stones. Situ Ming's face instantly turned icy cold. 1 billion top-grade spirit stones? Not much? Are you sure it's not much? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. "Let me tell you something. Were you aware that the firmament world was covered by a mysterious grand formation?" There was a trace of shock in Situ Ming's eyes when he heard this. "How did you know?" Yi Xian was slightly stunned because Situ Ming was clearly aware of this. Yi Xian restrained his thoughts and continued, "Then do you know that the Realm Defense Alliance plan is about to be completed? If you wait for it to be completed, then not to mention taking revenge, your Situ clan might not even be able to survive. If you don't join forces now, then you can only wait to be slaughtered in the future." He paused for a moment when he spoke up to this point, and then he continued, "Think about what happened to Karaki Academy. Think about it. It was first greatly weakened, and then it was oppressed. Now, think about it again. Don't you think that your Situ clan and Karaki Academy are enemies? Yes, your Situ clan has been greatly weakened. If that happens again..." Huh. Situ Ming fell silent. Yi Xian didn't say anything else. Sometimes, talking too much would only spoil things. A short while later, Situ Ming said, "I'll give you an answer within a day at most." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Yi Xian shrugged his shoulders and went on with his cultivation. After Situ Ming left, he returned to the Central Divine Prefecture and went to Karaki Academy. Of course, he wouldn't completely trust Yi Xian, and there were some things that he had to verify himself. As soon as Situ Ming arrived at Karaki Academy, an old man appeared before him. It was the dean of Karaki Academy, Li Qing. Situ Ming cupped his fists. "Dean Li, this old man is Situ Ming from the Situ clan. I have a question." "The Situ clan?" Li Qing glanced at Situ Ming. "Speak." Situ Ming glanced at the surroundings, and then he waved his right hand. The surroundings were instantly sealed off by a mysterious force, and then he gazed at Li Qing. "The old man wants to know exactly what happened to Karaki Academy." Karaki Academy. Li Qing's expression was slightly unsightly when he heard this. Because that incident could be said to be the greatest loss Karaki Academy had suffered in 100 years. Situ Ming cupped his fists once more when he saw Li Qing remain silent. "Please tell me the truth, Dean Li." Li Qing shook his head. The old man doesn't want to say much about Yi Xian. However, the old man still wants to remind you to be careful of the Realm Defense Alliance. They're the ones who eat you up without spitting out the bones. When he spoke up to this point, he seemed to have thought of something, and his expression instantly turned extremely gloomy. He naturally hated Yi Xian, but he hated the Realm Defense Alliance even more. Because Karaki Academy had been slaughtered by the Realm Defense Alliance, and it had no choice but to attach itself to another power. As for the matter with Yi Xian, it was because Karaki Academy was not as skilled as Yi Xian and lost. However, he would never forget the Realm Defense Alliance's backstabbing and adding insult to injury. So, compared to Yi Xian, he hated the Realm Defense Alliance even more. Situ Ming fell silent for a moment, and then he nodded, "I understand." With that, he turned and left. The next day, Situ Ming went to find Yi Xian again. In the bamboo forest, Situ Ming pointed a finger, and a spatial ring landed in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian picked up the spatial ring, and after scanning it with his divine sense, his hand instantly trembled. There were 1 billion top-grade spirit stones in the spatial ring. Yi Xian suddenly felt that everything in the world was still beautiful. At this moment, Situ Ming stared at Yi Xian. "We will support you with all our strength, but if you can't meet our requirements, we will abandon you at any time and find someone else, understand?" Yi Xian put away the spatial ring without batting an eyelid, and nodded, "I understand." However, I have one last question. Sita Ming said, ask. Yi Xian said solemnly, now, we're going to fight the Realm Defense Alliance to the death. Are you really prepared? Sita Ming sneered, when they slaughtered a dozen of my Situ family members, it was already a fight to the death. Don't worry, it's not just my Situ family that wants to deal with them, as for who else, I can't tell you for now. Yi Xian nodded, alright, I'll gather all the cultivators of the Azure Province now. As long as you support me with all your strength, I, Yi Xian, will not let the Azure Province become a second Kanglan province. Situ Ming looked at Yi Xian, then let's wait and see. Yi Xian said seriously, I will do my best. With that, he turned and left. Behind Yi Xian, Situ Ming slowly closed his eyes, and said softly, I hope this chess piece won't disappoint. Realm Defense Alliance. As he spoke, his expression gradually became ferocious. This was because the Situ family head who had died in the Myriad Mound Mountain was his son. After Yi Xian left the dense forest, he went straight to the imperial capital of the Ning Kingdom. Along the way, he was grinning from ear to ear. 1 billion top-grade spirit stones. 1 billion. With this amount of wealth, he could do many things. For example, repairing the prison pagoda, recruiting soldiers. Soon, Yi Xian arrived at the city wall of the Ning Kingdom. There, 100 Blue Waves cavalrymen were standing there, waiting for him. Seeing Yi Xian, all the Blue Waves cavalrymen bowed their heads, greetings, Dean. Yi Xian waved his hand, returned to the Jiang Kingdom. Just as Yi Xian was about to leave with everyone, a woman suddenly rode a horse, galloping from the city. Tuoba Yen. Tuoba Yen arrived in front of Yi Xian, and just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian's figure trembled, and he appeared on the back of a black flame horse. In the next moment, more than 100 people were already dozens of feet away. In the same place, Tuoba Yen was stunned. P.S. Last night, I dreamed that I won 5 million. Chapter 240. Ning Country and Jiang Country weren't far, so Yi Xian didn't take the cloud ship. In just a few hours, Yi Xian returned to Blue Waves Academy with 100 cavalrymen. After returning to Blue Waves Academy, Yi Xian immediately went to look for Lu Jioge and the others. Lu Jioge, Mo Yuan, Feng Lan, Jian Chu, Mo Yunqi, Bai Zhe, and the others were all present in Blue Waves Palace. All of them were looking at Yi Xian, waiting for Yi Xian's reply. Yi Xian said, I think all of you already understand the current situation in Azure Province, so you should also understand the current situation of me, Yi Xian. Yes, I have indeed clashed with Realm Defense Alliance. Clashed. The expressions of everyone in the hall changed slightly. Realm Defense Alliance. They were the enforcers of Azure Firmament World. Mo Yunqi smiled bitterly, Bandit Yi, isn't the enemy you found a little too strong? Yi Xian shrugged, it can't be helped. It's easy to attract hatred when a person is too handsome. Mo Yunqi gave Yi Xian a thumbs up, your skin is so thick that even if everyone from Realm Defense Alliance joins forces, it will be difficult to penetrate. Everyone in the palace laughed and they heard this. The atmosphere was much more cheerful. After a while, Lu Jioge looked at Yi Xian, tell me what you think. Yi Xian nodded, Azure Province is very chaotic now, and more cultivators from the Divine Central Continent are entering Azure Province. Our Blue Waves Academy alone can't protect Azure Province. We can only join forces with all the aristocratic families, sects, and independent cultivators in Azure Province. Only by working together can we resist these cultivators from the Divine Central Continent. How will true Imperial Realm experts deal with them? Lu Jioge suddenly asked. This question hit the nail on the head. Yi Xian waved his hand and said heroically, it's fine, I will deal with experts like true Imperial Realm experts. I, Yi Xian, have many people behind me, many people. Everyone. Lu Jioge glanced at Yi Xian and said, then it shouldn't be a big problem. I'll handle the matter of gathering the cultivators of the sects and aristocratic families in Azure Province. Yi Xian nodded. I'm relieved that you're in charge. Other than that, there is another problem. The Blue Wave's Dao soldiers are not strong enough. They must reach the level of 10,000 Laws Realm. Are you crazy? On the side, Mo Yunqi could not help but say, 10,000 Laws Realm. Bandit Yi, do you know what this means? Yi Xian said softly, Old Mo, old Bai, the current situation in Qingzhou, our situation is actually desperate. Mo Yunqi shook his head, I know, but it is very difficult to make every Blue Billow Dao soldier reach the standard of 10,000 Laws Realm. Yi Xian asked, what if we have enough money? He had enough money. Lu Jioge gazed at Yi Xian. Because of what happened in Pine Prefecture, Blue Billow Academy's current income is barely enough to cover its expenses. We don't have any extra money to nurture this Dao soldier. Yi Xian suddenly withdrew a spatial ring and placed it on the table, 500 million top-grade spirit stones. Is that enough? 500 million. The others exchanged glances and were slightly dazed. Did Yi Xian rob an extraordinary sect? Lu Jioge fell silent for a moment, and then she withdrew a spatial ring and placed it on the table. Within this spatial ring are the true rank spirit artifacts that you asked the 5th Pavilion Master of the Immortal Indulgence in to purchase. There are a total of 31 of them. The Blue Billow Dao soldiers have been annihilating the cultivators of the Central Divine Prefecture, and they've obtained a total of 41 true rank spirit artifacts. If you include these 500 million top-grade spirit stones, then you can barely gather 100 true rank spirit artifacts. But remember, it's an artifact, not a set. When she spoke up to this point, she gazed at Yi Xian. It's extraordinarily difficult for you to nurture an extraordinary Dao soldier. Understand? It's not really difficult. Jian Chuchu suddenly opened her mouth. Everyone looked at Jian Chuchu. Everyone looked at Jian Chuchu. Jian Chuchu giggled, we can use battle to nurture battle. Don't many people come to the Central Divine Prefecture? They've come to rob us, so why can't we rob them? That's right. Mo Yunqi suddenly smiled and said, we can rob them in return. The Blue Billow Dao soldiers can't always be nurtured by Bandit Yi. Now that their strength is so formidable, they can completely nurture themselves. Yi Xian looked at Lu Jioge, and the latter pondered for a moment before nodding, all right. Yi Xian nodded slightly. In this way, the pressure on him had indeed lessened greatly. After the meeting was adjourned, Yi Xian returned to his room. Yi Xian withdrew a spatial ring, and within it were the remaining 500 million top-grade spirit stones. I have to repair the prison pagoda. With this pagoda, I can feel more at ease. After all, Sword Immortal Sister isn't here now, so I have to have a trump card. Moreover, there are still several hundred spatial rings in the prison pagoda. Although the top-grade spirit stones in these spatial rings have been devoured, the items are still there. After all, these people had all been plundered from the Blue Billow province, so how could their items be trash? Not only that, but there are also 2 treasures of the true defensive Dharma realm. If the prison pagoda is restored, I will become rich again. Thinking of this, Yi Xian was a little excited. Devour. Soon, Yi Xian began to feed the top-grade spirit stones to the prison pagoda. Just like this, the prison pagoda began to devour the top-grade spirit stones in his spatial ring. 15 minutes later, 100 million top-grade spirit stones were gone. There was no movement in the prison pagoda. 30 minutes later, another 100 million top-grade spirit stones were gone. There was still no movement in the prison pagoda. Before long, there were only 100 million top-grade spirit stones left in the spatial ring. At this moment, Yi Xian was a little panicked. A moment later, all the top-grade spirit stones in his spatial ring were devoured cleanly, but there was still no movement in the prison pagoda. Inside the room, after a moment of silence, Yi Xian suddenly slammed the table in front of him and said angrily, "What do you want? What do you want? 700 million top-grade spirit stones. Brother, are you a pig? How can you eat so much, 700 million top-grade spirit stones?" Yi Xian's heart was bleeding. With the current situation of the Green Province, 700 million top-grade spirit stones, even some first-rate forces may not necessarily be able to take out. After all, the Ning country's countless years of accumulation only had a few tens of millions of top-grade spirit stones. But now, the prison pagoda had devoured 700 million top-grade spirit stones, and most importantly, there was still no movement. He couldn't afford it. This time, Yi Xian really felt that he couldn't afford it. Because he didn't know how many more top-grade spirit stones this pagoda needed to devour. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Yi Xian calmed down and said, "Come in." The door opened, and a woman walked in. The person was Jiangjiu. At this moment, Jiangjiu was still in her silver armor, still so valiant and heroic. Jiangjiu walked in front of Yi Xian. She sized up Yi Xian, "Sword Sovereign?" Yi Xian nodded. Jiangjiu nodded slightly, "Your improvement speed is not much slower than Xiaofan. A beautiful figure suddenly appeared in Yi Xian's mind. At this moment, Jiangjiu said, "Follow me." Then, she turned and left. Yi Xian followed Jiangjiu to the back mountain of Blue Waves Academy. In front of a waterfall, stood 10 people, all wearing dark golden armor, holding a dark golden spear in their hands. The 10 people's aura was sharp, their eyes like knives, their bodies exuded a cold killing intent. Seeing Yi Xian, the 10 people hurriedly knelt on one knee, "Greetings Dean." Beside Yi Xian, Jiangjiu said solemnly, "The 10 of them are all peak divine unity realm. If the 10 of them join hands, they can easily kill 10,000 laws realm. Easily kill 10,000 laws realm." Yi Xian shook his head, "Not enough." Hearing this, Jiangjiu turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said, "I need each of them to have the strength to kill 10,000 laws realm." The 10 people looked up at Yi Xian, somewhat in disbelief. Yi Xian said indifferently, "No confidence?" The 10 people were silent. Yi Xian said softly, "Now, Azure Province is in chaos, the fate of Azure Province, the fate of Jiang State, the fate of Blue Waves Academy, our own fate, these are all unknown. We must be strong enough, and only strong enough, can survive in this chaotic world." The 10 people cupped their fists in unison. "We pledge our lives to follow Dean." Yi Xian nodded. "In 2 days, I will find a group of opponents for you to practice with." Finished speaking, he turned and left. Jiangjiu looked at everyone, "Continue to cultivate." Finished speaking, she turned and followed after Yi Xian. On Xiaodao, Jiangjiu followed beside Yi Xian, "Equipment, money, medicinal pills." Yi Xian spread out his hands, "Sell me to Realm Protection Alliance." Jiangjiu glared at Yi Xian, "What are you talking about if you don't have money? Do you think it is so easy to forge a group of Super Dao soldiers?" Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Now, he was really poor, so poor that he wanted to surrender to Realm Protection Alliance. Because Realm Protection Alliance put a bounty on his head, even he was tempted. It was really a lot. Jiangjiu was about to speak. At this time, Mo Yunqi suddenly ran over. "Bandit Yi, there is a large number of experts outside the Imperial City, more than 100, it seems they are looking for you." "What?" Yi Xian jumped up, "Only 100? How much money can there be? This is infuriating. Forget it, no matter how small a mosquito is, it is still meat." Finished speaking, he turned and left, heading straight out of the Imperial City. In the same place, Mo Yunqi was stunned, then he looked at Jiangjiu. "He doesn't seem nervous at all," instead, he seems a little excited? Jiang Jiu glanced at the back of Yi Xian in the distance. He is already so poor that he has gone crazy. Yi Xian's speed was very fast. In a short while, he arrived outside the imperial city of Jiang country, and in the city behind him, there were 100 blue billow Dao soldiers. These 100 blue billow Dao soldiers were already waiting in formation, ready to charge at any time. Outside the city, over 100 people came in a formidable array. Every one of them was at least at the Nether Passage realm. Amongst them, there were also myriad Dharma realm, and there were a few more obscure auras. The 100 people stopped when they were over 30 m away from Yi Xian. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man. The middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian. He was about to speak. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Damn it, why are all of you so late?" After speaking, he directly vanished on the spot. In the next moment, the middle-aged man's expression changed greatly. He was just about to attack. In the blink of an eye, a sword was already at the center of his brows. Everyone present was stunned. In front of Yi Xian, the middle-aged man broke out in cold sweat. I am from the Azure Forest sect." Azure Forest sect? Yi Xian was stunned, then said with some excitement, Good, quick, call people now, call everyone from the Azure Forest sect here." As he spoke, he pointed at everyone present with his sword. Call people too, all of you, hurry up and call people. If you don't call people, it means you are not giving me, Yi Xian face, I will beat you to death. Everyone, Genius 1 second remember website. Mobile version. Chapter 241. Arrogant. Too arrogant. Everyone stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Damn it. We haven't even made a move yet. Not only did this fellow attack as soon as he arrived, he even wants us to call for reinforcements. Who exactly is causing trouble for whom? Even though the middle-aged man who stood before Yi Xian forced himself to remain calm, cold sweat flowed down his face without end. He knew that he'd severely underestimated Yi Xian's strength. Because he was at the Dharma realm. Earlier, he hadn't even been able to react before a sword was pressed against his forehead. At this moment, his mind gradually cleared up, and he finally understood why the Realm Defense Alliance had spent so much money on Yi Xian, but Yi Xian was still alive. He was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly said, "Call for reinforcements." The middle-aged man hesitated for a moment before he said, "I admit defeat. I'm willing to leave the kingdom of Jiang immediately." What nonsense are you talking about? Yi Xian suddenly said angrily, "You came all the way here, yet you're leaving before the battle has even begun? Are you looking down on me? Are you looking down on me?" As he spoke, he suddenly slashed down with his sword. Hiss! The middle-aged man's arm instantly flew into the air. Blood sprayed out like a fountain. Everyone was stunned. Is he a fucking madman? Many people couldn't help but take a step back. At this moment, the middle-aged man in front of Yi Xian was ghastly pale, and his eyes were filled with terror. Why does this fellow before me seem so abnormal? Meanwhile, Yi Xian's sword was pressed against the middle-aged man's neck. I'll give you one last chance. Come, call for reinforcements. Call for reinforcements from whatever sect you're from. The middle-aged man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. Are you really going to fight to the death? Yi Xian suddenly slashed with his sword. Hiss! The middle-aged man's body was directly split into two, and blood sprayed all over the ground. Everyone's expressions changed drastically, and they retreated repeatedly. Yi Xian took out a silk handkerchief and wiped the blood off his sword. You're a bad guy, but you're still so damn long-winded. I look down on you. As he spoke, he looked up at the 100 people in front of him and roared, What the F***ck are you looking at? Aren't you here to kill me, Yi Xian? Do it. Everyone had a look of fear on their faces. Who was the one bullying who? Some of them already had thoughts of retreating. At this time, an old man suddenly walked out. The spell defensive state. The old man stared at Yi Xian. Don't be fooled by him. No matter how monstrous Yi Xian is, he's just one person. We have more than 100 people here. Why should we be afraid of him? Yi Xian quickly nodded. That makes sense, very much so. However, a friendly reminder. I can basically kill an ordinary 10,000 Dharma state in a second. I can also kill an ordinary spell defensive state in a second. Really, I'm not joking. If you want to kill me, this number of people is still not enough. I sincerely suggest that you call more people. Otherwise, you won't live to see tomorrow's sun because of your wrong assessment of me. In front of Yi Xian, the old man said ferociously, Yi Xian, who are you trying to scare? Do you think this old man is scared? You. At this time, Yi Xian stomped his right foot, and 10 feet away, hiss. The head of the old man who spoke flew off. Blood spurted out like a pillar, and it was extremely bloody. 10 feet 1 kill. Seeing the old man killed in a second, everyone in the field was shocked and retreated. Yi Xian put away the storage ring on the old man's hand, and shook his head and sighed, what's wrong with this world? When I tell the truth, no one believes me. As he spoke, he looked up at the people in front of him, if you don't call for help, then I'm going to do it. After saying that, he had already rushed out. Move as he said. The moment Yi Xian rushed out, the complexion of the 100 people instantly changed, and at this time, someone in the crowd suddenly shouted, kill Yi Xian, the rich third generation. Kill. Before the voice fell, the head of the person who spoke flew off. In the crowd, flying swords crisscrossed, and heads flew off one after another. Seeing Yi Xian like a god of death, many people completely lost the will to fight, and turned around to escape. However, Yi Xian's flying sword was faster than them. In a short while, there were less than 20 people left in the field, and these 20 people didn't fight at all, and they were frantically running away. Yi Xian didn't chase, because the Blue Waves cavalry in the city had already chased after them. Yi Xian carried the bloody sword and walked to the side. In front of him lay a man. At this moment, this man was still twitching, and he wasn't completely dead. Yi Xian's face was expressionless, and the sword in his hand fell. The sword instantly submerged into the man's head, and after the man's body twitched violently, he no longer breathed. Cruel? For Yi Xian, in this chaotic world, if people didn't be cruel, they wouldn't live long. Especially when dealing with enemies, being merciful to the enemy was being cruel to oneself and the people around you. Yi Xian put away his sword, and collected all the storage rings of the corpses. He used his divine sense to scan, and there were more than 80 storage rings, and a total of 190 million top-grade spirit stones. In addition, there were also many miscellaneous things in the storage rings. There were more than 10 true-level spiritual weapons, and there were more than 30 bright-level spiritual weapons. In short, the harvest was not small. Especially these true-level spiritual weapons, they could reduce a large part of the expenses of Blue Waves Academy, because these weapons could be used by Blue Waves Academy's soldiers and students. As for the other things, it was not a big problem to sell them for tens of millions of top-grade spirit stones. In other words, this time's income was close to 200 million top-grade spirit stones. In fact, this was a very large amount of wealth. But for him, it was not enough, far from enough. He didn't give these 200 million top-grade spirit stones to Lu Jioga. Instead, he prepared to continue devouring them, and use them to restore the prison pagoda. Because now, he was the strongest person in Blue Waves Academy, he must not fall, and this prison pagoda was his strongest trump card, and he must restore it. At this time, those Blue Waves cavalrymen returned. Among them, there were more than 20 cavalrymen holding bloody skulls in their hands. A Blue Waves cavalryman dismounted, and came in front of Yi Xian, and handed over more than 20 storage rings with both hands. Yi Xian shook his head. Give them to the brothers. After speaking, he turned around and walked towards the city, and when he reached the entrance, he suddenly stopped, and then said, dispose of these corpses. Also, pass down the order, all Blue Waves Academy is to enter emergency state, and say that I am seriously injured, and I am currently recuperating. As his voice faded, he had already entered the city. Outside the city, 100 Blue Waves cavalrymen deeply bowed to Yi Xian, then turned around and left. Inside the room, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground, and continued to devour. After a long while, his storage ring was completely empty. Yi Xian didn't speak for a long time. 900 million best quality spirit stones. Up until now, this prison pagoda had already devoured 900 million best quality spirit stones, but there was still no movement. Bottomless pit. It might really be a bottomless pit. Yi Xian was somewhat hesitant. Hesitant whether he should continue to let this pagoda devour, because if this pagoda needed to devour 10 billion best quality spirit stones to recover, where would he go to find so many best quality spirit stones? He couldn't even snatch them. Should he really give up? Yi Xian was somewhat at a loss, because if he continued like this, he might forcibly collapse. At this time, the prison pagoda within his body suddenly trembled. Yi Xian was dumbfounded. After being dumbfounded, he hastily sensed the prison pagoda within his body, but there was still no movement from the prison pagoda. But he was sure, just a moment ago, the prison pagoda moved. Obviously, this might be some kind of hint. Inside the room, Yi Xian was silent for a long time, but in the end, he still decided to try again. He didn't want to give up just like this. After all, he had already spent 900 million best quality spirit stones, and with this prison pagoda, it was equivalent to having another means of self-protection. The problem was that he didn't have any more best quality spirit stones. He was poor. Yi Xian shook his head and sighed. He had just obtained 200 million best quality spirit stones, and they were all gone in the blink of an eye. The speed at which he was spending money. Even he felt that it was a bit terrifying. Moreover, after spending 200 million, it was like a stone sinking into the ocean. It only made a small splash, and then there was nothing left. Although the prison pagoda had given him some reaction, he was still a bit panicked, because he still didn't know how many more best quality spirit stones he would need. At this moment, the door suddenly opened, and an old man walked in. Sita Ming. Yi Xian gathered his thoughts and said in a low voice, knocking on a door shouldn't be too difficult, right? Sita Ming sneered, I'm here to give you a heads up. The top 3 mercenary groups in the Divine Central Continent have already arrived, and they've joined forces. Their target is you. Yi Xian asked, there's a true Imperial Magic Realm? For him now, only a true Imperial Magic Realm powerhouse could pose a fatal threat to him. Of course, even a true Imperial Magic Realm powerhouse like Wan Li could pose a great threat to him. Sita Ming said indifferently, what do you think? Yi Xian hurriedly shook his head, if I can't beat them, I have to run. Sita Ming was slightly angry, you're a swordsman after all. Why are you so scared? Yi Xian spread his hands, true Imperial Magic Realm. I can't beat them. Sita Ming stared at Yi Xian, don't worry. If a true Imperial Magic Realm powerhouse makes a move, we'll take care of it ourselves. However, the rest is up to you. Yi Xian nodded, then there's no problem. Sita Ming said coldly, no problem. You'd better not underestimate them. Those 3 mercenary groups are not to be trifled with, especially the Netherworld mercenary group, which is ranked first. They're incredibly mysterious, and even we can't find out the true origins of some of their members. In terms of strength, their boss is ranked 3rd on the monster ranking. At this point, he paused slightly, then said, also, although some people aren't on the monster ranking, it doesn't mean they're not strong. It's just because they haven't fought on the monster ranking. Take yourself for example. Although you haven't fought on the monster ranking, no one dares to say you're weak. Do you understand? Yi Xian nodded slightly. I understand. Don't worry, I won't underestimate them. At this point, he hesitated, then said, there's something else. I need some equipment, pills, martial arts techniques. Situ Ming stared at Yi Xian. Yi Xian sighed heavily. I know you think I'm greedy, but think about it. Can I fight the entire central divine region by myself? If I don't nurture some people, how can I fight them? They'll exhaust me to death. Otherwise, you can send some people to fight with me. I, Yi Xian, am willing to be your pawn. At this point, he said seriously, if you really think it's difficult, it's fine. I'll take the disciples of Blue Waves Academy and leave Qingzhou. If there's no other way, I'll surrender. In any case, the Realm Defense Alliance and I haven't reached the point where one of us has to die yet. Situ Ming stared at Yi Xian for a long time, then finally turned to leave. When he reached the door, he suddenly said, I'll give you an answer tomorrow. With that, he disappeared. P.S. Reader Bootlicker Army Xiaoyao Z, you asked me in a private message yesterday how to cure erectile dysfunction. I'm just a writer, I really don't know how to cure this disease. Genius 1 second remember website. Mobile version. Chapter 242. Insatiable Greed? To Yi Xian, of course he had to be greedy now. Because the Situ clan and the other forces were also using him as a pawn to deal with the Realm Defense Alliance. At a time like this, he naturally had to fight for more benefits. Because if he missed this opportunity, he might not get another one. He had to be sincere to his friends, but he had to be ruthless to his enemies. This time, Yi Xian did not cultivate. Instead, he took a bath and slept peacefully. Just as the sky brightened, Situ Ming came again. This time, Situ Ming brought over 50 pieces of truth-grade equipment, all of which were high-grade truth-grade. In addition, there were also some top-grade elixirs, all of which were cultivation elixirs suitable for Divine Unity Realm cultivators. After Situ Ming put down the storage ring, he turned around and left without saying a word. Yi Xian was not angry. Instead, he was extremely happy as he held the storage ring. Because this time, the Blue Waves Academy's Blue Waves Dao soldiers could all be equipped with truth-grade equipment. Truth-grade equipment. Even in the Divine Central Continent, only the Dao soldiers of some of the top forces would have such a configuration. Simply put, this configuration of 100 Blue Waves Dao soldiers was considered top-notch even in the Divine Central Continent. After a moment of excitement, Yi Xian put away the storage ring and entered his personal cultivation room. This time, he was not practicing the life and death sword, but the soul-setting sword. This sword skill was left to him by the mysterious woman. It was not that he had forgotten it, but when he was studying the soul-setting sword, he felt that he was lacking in many aspects. At that time, he was only at the Nether Passage realm, which was too low. Not only was his cultivation low, but his attainments in the Sword Dao were also low. Now that he had reached the Divine Unity realm, his Sword Dao had improved a lot, so he wanted to give it a try. After Situ Ming left the Blue Waves Academy, his figure trembled and shot into the clouds. After a long time, Situ Ming came to a stop. Thick clouds surrounded him. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the clouds on the left. This kid is too greedy. He should be taught a lesson. Otherwise, if he keeps asking for more and more, he will treat us like a treasury and let him take whatever he wants. A voice sounded out from the layer of clouds on the right. It's indeed like that. Moreover, he's an extremely monstrous genius. He attained the Sword Emperor realm at such a young age, and such natural talent is rare even in the Central Prefecture. If we help him like this, it will be like nurturing a tiger. Situ Ming glanced at the two of them. Gentlemen, forgive the old man for being blunt, but if we don't want to pay any price, then we'd better disband as soon as possible. One must know that our enemy is the Realm Defense Alliance. As for Yi Xian, if we don't use him, then who else in Pine Prefecture do you think can resist these cultivators from the Central Divine Prefecture? Unless the two of you are willing to show yourselves and face the Realm Defense Alliance head-on. Silence fell on both sides. Situ Ming continued. He isn't to the extent of being greedy. Just as he said, it's utterly impossible for him to go against the Central Divine Prefecture by himself. As for the spirit stones and equipment, as far as we're concerned, we'll each bear a bit of the cost, so it won't hurt or itch. Besides, if we don't need him in the future, we can always take him back, can't we? After a moment of silence, a voice rang out from the clouds on the right. I'm afraid of nurturing a tiger. Situ Ming glanced to the right. Who do you think is more terrifying, Yi Xian, or the Realm Defense Alliance? Of course it's the latter, said the voice. Situ Ming nodded. The most important thing for us right now is to deal with the Realm Defense Alliance. Not only do we have to secretly investigate the Realm Defense Alliance's scheme, but we also have to contact more forces to join us. At this point, he looked up at the sky and said softly, those clans in the upper realm, those old farts in the lower realm, and those who were once suppressed by the Realm Defense Alliance, they will join us because no one wants to be suppressed forever, and even more so, they don't want the Realm Defense Alliance to weaken them bit by bit. As for this Yi Xian, we'll just get rid of him when we grow stronger in the future. For now, let's satisfy him first and let him restrain the Realm Defense Alliance. With that, Situ Ming turned and disappeared. Within the cultivation room, Yi Xian held his sword tightly against his forehead. There was not the slightest aura around him. Soul-setting sword. This sword skill was a little special. It was special in that it targeted the soul. It was extremely lethal to the soul. It could be said that it was a natural counter to soul bodies. As for ordinary people, it might not be as good as his 10-zhang kill and life-setting sword. Because if he drew his sword, he would definitely kill. Separating the soul? That was too troublesome. Cultivating this soul-setting sword was completely a backup move in case he encountered a cultivator who specialized in the soul in the future. While Yi Xian was frantically cultivating, the situation in Azure Province was gradually changing. Because after Yi Xian and Lien Wanli returned, the cultivators from the Divine Central Continent could no longer plunder as unbridled as before. Lien Wanli stood guard in the Great Cloud Realm, while Yi Xian stood guard outside the Great Cloud Realm. Some remote lands and some remote countries had already been robbed clean. To put it simply, for the cultivators from the Divine Central Continent, only the Great Cloud Realm and Yi Xian were left for them to fight over. The Great Cloud Realm and Blue Waves Academy were the two richest places in Azure Province. Especially Blue Waves Academy, because they had Yi Xian. Killing Yi Xian would make them rich instantly, and they would also have the Realm Protector token. Such a shocking bounty would definitely tempt some people. Not only was there a bounty, but once they killed Yi Xian, they could enter the Jiang, Ning, and Tang empires to do whatever they wanted. Moreover, there was Blue Waves Academy. The current Blue Waves Academy had a lot of assets and a supreme-grade spirit vein. It could be said that there were too many people who wanted Yi Xian dead. On a plain in the Jiang Empire, 3 mercenary groups were hurrying toward the capital of the Jiang Empire. There were 10 great mercenary groups in the Central Divine Prefecture, and these 3 mercenary groups were the top 3 in the Central Divine Prefecture. They were the Underworld Mercenary Group, the Monarch Mercenary Group, and the Wild Lion Mercenary Group. The 3 mercenary groups, excluding their respective leaders, had a total of 30 members. The Wild Lion Mercenary Group was on the left. There were only 12 people in the Wild Lion Mercenary Group, all of whom were at the peak of the Divine Union realm. Their auras were powerful, and several of them had already surpassed the Divine Union realm. The 12 of them were all wearing black armor, and there were flowing lights on the surface of the armor. On their waists, each of them had a long, dark saber. The saber was about a meter long, and every saber emitted a frost-like glow. Behind the 12 of them was a black round shield. The round shield seemed to be forged from some kind of scale, and its edge was as sharp as a blade. High-grade truth rank. All 12 of them were equipped with high-grade truth rank equipment. Apart from that, the 12 of them were riding black flame horses. However, these black flame horses were much larger than the ones ridden by the Blue Waves Path soldiers. The leader of the Wild Lion mercenary group was a fatty called Wild Lion. He was huge, weighing at least 150 kilograms. He wasn't wearing a shirt, and all his fat was exposed to the air. On his chest was a tattoo of a ferocious lion. On the right was the Monarch mercenary group. There were only 10 of them, and their auras were stronger than the Wild Lion mercenary group. The 10 of them were dressed in golden armor and wielded golden spears. Each of them carried a golden longbow on their back, and small golden arrows were tied to their arms. All of them were high-grade truth rank. Each of them was riding a demonic beast, but it wasn't a black flame horse. These demonic beasts were shaped like wolves, and they had long limbs. They were extremely muscular, and every time they landed, they would leave a deep footprint in the ground. Gale wolves. They were a type of extremely fast demonic beast. When they ran, they were faster than the wind, even faster than the black flame horses. The leader of the Monarch mercenary group was a white-robed man. He was very young, only in his 20s, and his surname was Wang. King. This name was very famous in the Divine Central Continent, because he was ranked 3rd on the monster rankings. King, born to be a king. This was his catchphrase. Between the Wild Lion mercenary group and the Monarch mercenary group was the Netherworld mercenary group, which was ranked 1st in the Divine Central Continent. There weren't many of them, only 9 of them, including the leader. However, they were extremely famous in the Divine Central Continent, and even some of the peak factions didn't dare to provoke them lightly. There were even rumors that the Realm Defense Alliance had tried to recruit this mercenary group. There were both men and women among the 9, and they all wore plain clothes with bamboo hats on their heads and a gray-white cloak on their backs. The 9 of them didn't have any auras, and it was impossible to tell how strong they were. Beneath them was a horse, an ordinary horse. The leader of the Netherworld mercenary group was a woman. Her name was unknown, and her face was hidden behind a veil. The 3 mercenary groups headed straight for the capital of the country of Jiang, and their target was Yixian. When they were less than 100 kilometers away from the capital, the leader of the Netherworld mercenary group suddenly stopped, and the 9 people behind her stopped as well. The Wild Lion mercenary group and the Monarch mercenary group also stopped and looked at the leader of the Netherworld mercenary group. The leader of the Netherworld mercenary group stretched out her right hand, and a scroll fell from the clouds in the sky. Soon, the scroll landed firmly in her hand. The woman opened the scroll, and it was filled with Yi Xian's information. It was so detailed that it made one's scalp go numb. Even what Yi Xian ate in a day was clearly recorded. A moment later, the woman put away the scroll and looked in the direction of the capital. 19 years old, Sword Emperor, with 2 heaven-grade swords. Sword skill unknown, at least heaven-grade, with an 80% chance of being above heaven-grade. 2 forms of sword intent, 1 offensive and 1 defensive. At this point, she frowned slightly. The Monarch mercenary group looked at the woman. Is there a problem? The woman put away the scroll. This person's strength isn't enough for such a high bounty. There must be a trap. The Monarch mercenary group frowned slightly. The Realm Defense Alliance is plotting something? The woman didn't say anything, but Mad Lion suddenly said, "Who cares what he's plotting? Let's get rid of him first." In any case, the Realm Defense Alliance won't go back on their word. The woman ignored Mad Lion and looked into the distance. Not only her, but everyone else also looked into the distance. There, a man walked over with a sword box on his back and a sword in his hand. The man walked in front of the woman and smiled. "Let me introduce myself. I am Yi Xian." Yi Xian. The woman and the others looked at Yi Xian, but they didn't say anything. On the other side, Mad Lion clenched his fists, and a cold light flickered in his eyes. Yi Xian took another step forward and said seriously, "Do you know why the Realm Defense Alliance is offering such a high bounty on me?" Mad Lion suddenly grinned. "I don't care about that." As he said this, he was about to attack. The woman suddenly said, "Let him speak." Mad Lion glanced at the woman, but the woman didn't even look at him. Mad Lion hesitated, but in the end, he didn't attack. Obviously, he was a little afraid. However, when he looked at Yi Xian, the killing intent in his eyes became even thicker. Yi Xian ignored Mad Lion and continued, "With the Realm Defense Alliance's strength, why would they need to go through so much trouble to kill me? Any true Imperial Law Realm powerhouse would be enough to deal with me. But, why didn't they do so?" As he said this, he turned to the woman and the others. "Do you know why?" The woman looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. The king suddenly said, "Don't tell me they're trying to train you." Yi Xian was stunned, then quickly shook his head. "I didn't say anything. Yi Xian, have nothing to do with the Realm Defense Alliance." As he said this, he pointed his sword at the woman and the others. "Don't say anything. Yi Xian, will wait for you outside the city. Let's fight to the death." After saying this, he turned and left. Everyone. Chapter 243. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the king and Mad Lion glanced at each other before turning to look at the Netherworld mercenary group woman. The woman looked at the departing figure of Yi Xian without saying a word, as if she was trying to see through Yi Xian. Soon, Yi Xian disappeared from everyone's sight. Next to the woman, the king said solemnly, "This matter is indeed strange. That bounty is enough to kill a true Imperial Law Realm expert. However, it is used to kill a Divine Unity Realm expert. This is extremely strange. Moreover, if the Realm Protection Alliance really wanted to kill him, they could have done it themselves. There was no need to do this. You should know that the people on the wanted list are all hiding, not daring to show their faces. However, this Yi Xian has never been hiding. He is right here in the city, but the Realm Defense Alliance doesn't want to do it themselves. Why do they have to do this?" Saying this, he looked at the woman beside him. "What do you think?" The woman did not speak. Mad Lion frowned and suddenly said, "Could it be that this Yi Xian is really a member of the Realm Protection Alliance? And the Realm Protection Alliance is doing this to train him?" After thinking about it, the king said solemnly, "It's not impossible. With how monstrous this person is, it's impossible that he doesn't have a force behind him. After all, Kuraki Academy and Dark World have been targeting him. But now, Kuraki Academy's strength has been greatly damaged and Dark World has disappeared. In addition, the Situ family had once sent a true Imperial Law Realm expert to kill him. The matter of Myriad Mountain? Mad Lion asked. The king nodded. At that time, hundreds of experts and 2 true Imperial Law Realm experts. However, the 2 true Imperial Law Realm experts and hundreds of people all disappeared, but this Yi Xian is still alive. He definitely has a force behind him. Perhaps, it's the Realm Protection Alliance. Of course, even if it's not the Realm Protection Alliance, it must be a super force. Mad Lion's frown deepened. Are we going back just like that? The king looked at the veiled woman. Mad Lion also looked at the veiled woman. After a moment of silence, the veiled woman said, "Wait, wait for the Realm Protection Alliance to make a move. If they continue to increase the bounty, then there's a big problem. King continued. Quang Shi nodded in agreement. It's better to wait. Otherwise, it would be too much of a loss if we were to be used as cannon fodder. The veiled woman slowly closed her eyes. Continue the investigation. Yi Xian returned to Blue Waves Academy. Along the way, his expression was solemn. This time, he left the city to see if he could get rid of these 3 mercenary groups. However, when he saw these 3 mercenary groups, he immediately changed his mind. This was because the strength of these 3 mercenary groups had exceeded his expectations. The strength of each of these 3 mercenary groups was above the Blue Waves cavalry. Especially the veiled woman in the middle and the 9 people behind her. They were somewhat unfathomable. These 9 people could be 10,000 Law's realm. As for the 3 people in the lead, except for the veiled woman, the other 2 were in the Dharma realm, and it was very likely that they were in the real Dharma realm. Other than that, the veiled woman's strength was truly unfathomable. There was no way he could defeat 30 people by himself. And if he added in the Blue Waves Dao soldiers, even if he won in the end, it would definitely be a Pyrrhic victory. And this matter also reminded him that those who dared to look for him, Yi Xian, were definitely not ordinary people. He must not lower his guard. Recollecting his thoughts, Yi Xian quickly arrived at the back mountain of Blue Waves Academy. In a training area, 100 Blue Waves cavalrymen were quietly standing. The leader was Jiangjiu. When they saw Yi Xian, all the Blue Waves cavalrymen saluted one after another. Yi Xian nodded his head. He walked in front of Jiangjiu and softly said, after going out, "Be careful." Jiangjiu nodded his head, understood. After speaking, she turned around and looked at the cavalrymen behind her. "Let's go." Jiangjiu led the 100 Blue Waves cavalrymen and rushed down the mountain. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page, sweep. Now, Blue Waves cavalrymen had a mission every day. That was to go out and sweep. And every time they came back from a sweep, they would have a lot of harvest. Now, Blue Waves cavalrymen already had the ability to stand on their own feet. He didn't need to spend money to support them. Not only Blue Waves cavalrymen, but the entire Blue Waves Academy had its own income. It could be said that now, even without him, Blue Waves Academy could operate on its own. Of course, now, whether it was him or Blue Waves Academy, they still had the biggest enemy, Realm Defense Alliance. In fact, when Realm Defense Alliance targeted him like this, he was somewhat confused at the beginning because he didn't have anything to do with Realm Defense Alliance. But later, he suddenly thought of something. The mysterious woman had killed several people of Realm Defense Alliance, and the reason why Realm Defense Alliance didn't dare to openly kill him was probably because of this mysterious woman. In addition, this Realm Defense Alliance had given up Azure Province. Their purpose was definitely not pure. And Sidu clan and other forces might have discovered something, so they wanted to use him to restrain Realm Defense Alliance. And whether it was Sidu clan and other forces or Realm Defense Alliance, he couldn't resist them now. Now, the urgent matter was to develop his own strength. Repair Prison Pagoda and search for Dao laws. Thinking of this, Yi Xian left Blue Waves Academy, Central Divine Continent, Realm Defense Palace. High Lord Lu's expression was extremely gloomy. In front of him was a black-robed old man. A moment later, High Lord Lu looked at the black-robed old man in front of him. 1 sect, 1 lineage, 1 sword, 3 sects, and 6 clans didn't enter Azure Province? The black-robed old man nodded. Not a single one. And after ordinary cultivators of the Central Divine Continent entered Azure Province, most of them were killed by Yi Xian and Lien Wanli. Azure Province's situation is considered stable now, and the origin of Azure Province shows no signs of appearing. High Lord Lu narrowed his eyes. Yi Xian, at this point, he seemed to think of something and frowned deeply. Could it be that the forces of the Central Divine Continent discovered something? The black-robed old man shook his head. I don't know. In short, such a high bounty, but they aren't tempted at all. This in itself is abnormal. High Lord Lu was silent. The black-robed old man suddenly said, "Why don't we do it ourselves?" High Lord Lu shook his head. If we do it ourselves, even a fool will know that something is wrong. At that time, the forces of the Central Divine Continent and the lower realm will most likely join forces. Moreover, our Realm Defense Alliance has always upheld justice. If we destroy Azure Province with our own hands, the reputation of our Realm Defense Alliance will surely plummet. The black-robed old man nodded. That's true. After a moment of silence, High Lord Lu seemed to have thought of something, and his expression gradually turned ferocious. This Yi Xian. If it weren't for him, Azure Province would have been bathed in rivers of blood. At this point, he looked at the black-robed old man. Have you found out where that mysterious woman came from? The black-robed old man said in a low voice, We have some news. It's said that someone has seen this person in the endless star field. Our people are already on their way. We'll know if it's true or not. High Lord Lu nodded. Let's find this person first. When the Lord's main body returns, we'll destroy this Yi Xian as well. The black-robed old man glanced at High Lord Lu and said nothing. He finally understood. This High Lord Lu didn't dare to touch Yi Xian because he was afraid that the mysterious woman would appear. It should be known that the Realm Defense Alliance had sent a true Imperial Law Realm expert, but he was instantly killed. Moreover, it was by a strand of hair. It could be said that as long as the mysterious woman didn't die and the Lord's main body didn't return, the Realm Defense Alliance wouldn't dare to touch Yi Xian. Because right now, the Realm Defense Alliance couldn't beat the mysterious woman. High Lord Lu suddenly said, I'll make a trip to the Devil Sect. This chapter is not finished, please turn the page. If the entire Azure Province becomes a cultivation ground for the Devil Sect, I don't believe they won't be tempted. With that, he disappeared from the hall. The vast star river was boundless. A woman crossed the starry sky. The woman wore a plain dress, her long hair reaching her waist, her hands behind her back. On her fingertips, there were two objects, one black and one white. The woman was expressionless, her eyes indifferent, without a trace of emotion. Just like this, after crossing countless star fields, the woman suddenly stopped. She listened attentively and heard something. Her brows furrowed slightly. The next moment, her right foot gently stomped. Boom! In an instant, the space around her trembled violently, as if there was a great earthquake. And around her, countless stars began to collapse and be annihilated inch by inch. After an unknown amount of time, she stretched out her jade-like hand and gently pinched. A ray of white light suddenly appeared between her thumb and index finger. She released her thumb and index finger, and the white light trembled slightly, then turned into a figure in front of her. Yi Xian. This figure was none other than Yi Xian. Seeing Yi Xian, the woman was slightly stunned. The next moment, she took a step forward, and her jade-like hand gently brushed the white light that had transformed into Yi Xian. Gradually, the woman's jade-like hand began to tremble, and her gaze became a little dazed. After an unknown amount of time, her eyes suddenly turned cold. Avatar annihilated. Information is incomplete. Something must have happened. When she spoke up to this point, her expression became slightly ferocious. If anything happens to you, then I'll definitely bury all living beings with you. As soon as she finished speaking, she waved her hand lightly. In an instant, a ray of light flashed, and everywhere it passed, everything started to be annihilated. 15 minutes later, this star field had become a pitch-black hole. The woman continued traversing through space. After an unknown amount of time, she stopped. There was a dark golden palace floating not too far away from her. The palace gave off a grand aura, and there were two enormous beasts that were the size of small mountains crouching on both sides of the palace. The beasts were shaped like oxen, and they only had a single horn. Their eyes were like bloody mouths that seemed ready to devour someone. There was a statue of a man at the top of the palace. The man was robust, and he looked ahead with an indifferent gaze. His right hand was behind his back, and he seemed to look down upon the world. There were 3 large golden words at the top of the palace: Spirit Void Star Palace. The woman in the plain dress appeared directly at the entrance of the palace. The moment she appeared, the 2 giant beasts on both sides of the palace suddenly stood up. A monstrous pressure directly pressed down on the woman in the plain dress. In an instant, the space in front of them became illusory, as if it was about to collapse. The woman glanced at the 2 enormous beasts and pointed, "Kneel." As soon as she spoke, thump. The 2 enormous beasts knelt down and trembled. The plain-dressed woman waved her hand and the door of the palace instantly shattered. A white-haired old man appeared in front of the plain-dressed woman. The white-haired old man stared at the plain-dressed woman with fear in his eyes. "May I ask who you are?" The woman waved her right hand, and a figure appeared before the white-haired old man. It was Yi Xian. The woman walked slowly towards the white-haired old man. "Find this person." When she spoke up to this point, she gently pointed with her finger, and an illusory sword suddenly appeared above the palace. The woman walked over to the white-haired old man and looked him in the eye. "If you dare to say no, then all of you will die. P.S. The Azure Phoenix waved her hand. "Give me your monthly votes. If you dare to say no, I'll beg you again tomorrow." End of this chapter. Chapter 244. The woman's voice was calm, but it sent chills down everyone's spine. The white-haired old man stared at the woman. His right hand was already clenched, and a force condensed in his hand like a volcano that was about to erupt. The woman ignored the white-haired old man and walked straight into the palace. At this moment, the white-haired old man suddenly said, "Would like to ask for your guidance." The woman stopped, her face expressionless. "This is your life's mistake." As soon as she finished speaking, she continued to walk into the palace, and a sword flew towards the white-haired old man. The old man's expression was ferocious. He turned around and punched. The punch was thrown. The space in front of the white-haired old man directly formed a strange vortex. At the same time, a violent force constantly vibrated out of this strange vortex. In an instant, the entire starry sky began to tremble. It was incomparably shocking. The sword arrived. Chi! The strange vortex was directly torn apart, and at the same time, the sword directly pierced the white-haired old man's forehead. The white-haired old man was horrified. He wanted to separate his soul, but it couldn't. Not only that, but his face was aging at an extremely fast speed. In less than 10 breaths, the white-haired old man had turned into dust. He couldn't even reincarnate because his soul mark had been completely erased. The starry sky suddenly quieted down. About an hour later, countless experts suddenly flew out of the palace and then fled in all directions. They were all looking for one person, Yi Xian. In the divine central continent, the Devil sect suddenly announced that they would enter the Azure province to avenge the All-Pleasure sect and the Blood sect. Not only the Devil sect, but the Ghost sect also announced that they would enter the Azure province to seek justice for the Blood sect and All-Pleasure sect. This time, the Devil sect and the Ghost sect did not send people to the Azure province. Instead, they brought their entire sect to the Azure province. Moreover, their goal was very clear. They had come for Yi Xian. At the same time, the Realm Defense Alliance issued a bounty. Anyone who killed a student of the Blue Waves Academy would receive 3 million top-grade spirit stones, and anyone who killed Yi Xian would receive 1.5 billion top-grade spirit stones. For a time, countless forces and experts began to stir. Yi Xian himself was walking out of a smithy at this moment. After walking out of the smithy, Yi Xian left the city and arrived in front of a bamboo forest. Just as he arrived in front of the bamboo forest, a man wearing golden armor blocked his way. Yi Xian faced the dense forest. "Please come out and meet me." Soon, the veiled woman, Mad Lion, and King walked out. The three of them looked at Yi Xian without saying a word. Yi Xian cupped his fists and faced Wild Lion. "I presume this is the Wild Lion mercenary group's leader, Wild Lion." Mad Lion glanced at Yi Xian. "You've heard of me before?" Yi Xian nodded and said with a smile, "Naturally, rumor has it that you were able to kill a 10,000 law realm expert when you just reached the Divine Unity realm." "It's not a rumor," Mad Lion said calmly. Yi Xian gave him a thumbs up. "I admire you." Mad Lion sized up Yi Xian. "You're not bad yourself. Such a young sword emperor. There's no one in the Divine Central Continent so far." Yi Xian smiled and then faced King. "You must be King, ranked 3rd on the monstrous geniuses list. If there's time, I'd like to seek guidance from you. I have no ill intentions. I just want to exchange pointers." King nodded slightly. "Any time." Yi Xian cupped his fists and then faced the veiled woman. The latter was looking at him. Yi Xian smiled and said, "How should I address you, sir?" The information on these people was naturally given to him by the Situ family. However, the Situ family did not have any information on this veiled woman. Moreover, this veiled woman's true strength was also unknown. The veiled woman just looked at him and did not speak. Yi Xian was a little embarrassed. He smiled and said, "The three of you have come this time to talk. A straightforward person will not resort to insinuations. The three of you have brought everyone to Azure Province because you want to take Yi Xian's head and exchange it for the bounty, am I right?" Mad Lion nodded and was very honest. "Yes." Yi Xian smiled and said, "Then, what is your attitude now?" Mad Lion did not speak. Because after discussing and investigating for an entire night, they felt that there was something strange about this matter. Yi Xian had risen too quickly. Moreover, he had offended Karaki Academy and Dark World, but what was the result? Dark World had completely disappeared, and Karaki Academy had become a third-rate force. Not only that, but Karaki Academy had also been punished by Dark World. This was no longer a secret. The strangest thing was that the Realm Defense Alliance could have killed Yi Xian, but they had not done anything to Yi Xian. Instead, they had issued a warrant for his arrest. There was definitely something fishy going on. King suddenly said, "What about you? Why did you come here?" Yi Xian said, "Have the others withdraw." King looked at Yi Xian and then waved his hand. Soon, the mercenaries around him retreated. Yi Xian walked in front of the three and said with a Xian Qi sound transmission, "Next, we need to use Xian Qi sound transmission. Don't let outsiders know. My purpose for coming here is to cooperate with you." King frowned, "Cooperate?" Yi Xian nodded, "Yes, now that the Azure world's spiritual energy is thin and chaotic, if we cooperate at this time, there will be many benefits." King stared at Yi Xian, "You are wanted by the Realm Defense Alliance. Cooperating with you is the same as not giving face to the Realm Defense Alliance." Yi Xian shook his head and said with a smile, "You don't need to trick me. I can tell you very frankly, I, Yi Xian, am the next Realm Defense Alliance High Lord that the Realm Defense Alliance has carefully cultivated." As soon as these words came out, Wild Lion and King's faces changed, but the veiled woman's expression was as calm as ever. Wild Lion and King exchanged a glance. Finally, Wild Lion looked at Yi Xian, "Why should we believe you?" Yi Xian retorted, "Why don't you believe me?" King stared at Yi Xian. "The Realm Defense Alliance is targeting you, is it really just to train you?" Yi Xian nodded, "Otherwise, why do you think they put me on the wanted list? I didn't hide, they could have directly come and killed me. But they didn't, why? Because the current High Lord Lu is my master." Master. As soon as these words came out, Wild Lion and the others were stunned. Master? Who didn't know High Lord Lu? He was one of the most famous supermasters in the Azure world. And this person was actually Yi Xian's master? Yi Xian said again, "You should have investigated me. Do you know why I was ordinary before the age of 18, but after leaving Azure City, Yi Xian's cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, and I had all kinds of fortuitous encounters? Because behind me is High Lord Lu, the entire Realm Defense Alliance." Saying this, he waved his right hand, and 2 heaven-grade swords and hundreds of true-grade spirit weapons appeared in front of him. Yi Xian said, "Do you see? If I didn't have the support of a powerful force, how could I have so many treasures?" Saying this, he put away all the things, and then said, "Wuxia Mountain, 2 true defensive law realm, 10,000 law realm, hundreds of experts disappeared. Do you know who did it? My Realm Defense Alliance did it. The Situ family in Dark World didn't know life from death and wanted to kill me. How could my Realm Defense Alliance sit back and watch? We directly exterminated them." Mad Lion and King looked at each other again, and there was a trace of shock in their eyes. In fact, they had also guessed some of it, but hearing Yi Xian's words at this moment, they were still shocked. Because what the Realm Defense Alliance did was too extreme. Yi Xian said again, "Azure Province suddenly changed, and my master used this opportunity to train me. At the same time, he also wanted to eliminate some forces with bad intentions, such as those who entered Azure Province and wantonly slaughtered people. These people offended heaven and reason, wantonly slaughtered people. Do you think my Realm Defense Alliance really doesn't care? No." Saying this, he pointed to himself, "In fact, we have always been in charge, otherwise, do you think I have nothing better to do than to protect Azure Province? No, this is just my task. If I can protect Azure Province, my task will be completed, and I will be qualified. In the future, when my master leaves, the Realm Defense Alliance will be mine." Mad Lion said solemnly, "Since this is your training, why did you come to us to cooperate?" Yi Xian smiled and said, "Even though this is training, it doesn't mean that I can't live without my own people. I came to cooperate with all of you to protect Azure Province. Of course, all of you won't be protecting it for nothing. If we join forces, we'll definitely be able to annihilate those cultivators and powers from the Central Divine Prefecture, and we'll definitely be able to obtain a huge amount of wealth. Besides that, if I return to the Realm Defense Alliance in the future, I'll be able to make things easier for all of you. If there are people in the Realm Defense Alliance, then I don't have to explain the benefits of staying in the Central Divine Prefecture. I'm sure all of you understand." Mad Lion glanced at Yi Xian, and then he turned to look at King and the Veiled Woman. The Veiled Woman still didn't speak. King hesitated for a moment before he said, "To be honest, I still don't really trust you." Yi Xian smiled, "I understand, and I won't force you. In any case, my brothers have arrived at Azure Province, and they'll be arriving at my academy soon. All of them are from the Central Divine Prefecture. So, it would definitely be a huge loss for all of you if you missed this opportunity." When he spoke up to this point, he cupped his fists to the 3 of them, "Farewell." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left without the slightest hesitation. Mad Lion and King were slightly hesitant and conflicted behind Yi Xian. Because this really was an opportunity for them. If they worked together, then they wouldn't just be able to get rich, they would even be able to form a connection with the Realm Defense Alliance. Most importantly, if Yi Xian became the exalt of the Realm Defense Alliance in the future, then they. Moreover, with Yi Xian's natural talent and the terrifying combat strength he'd revealed, it was entirely possible for him to become the Exalt of the Realm Defense Alliance in the future. Even if he couldn't become an Exalt, he would definitely become a core figure. At that time, they would definitely be able to obtain a huge amount of benefits. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly stopped in the distance. He turned around and took out a command token. The words Protector were inscribed on the front of the command token, and the word Xian was inscribed on the back of the command token. Yi Xian waved the command token in his hand and said, "I hope that all of you will keep the fact that I, Yi Xian, am the young Exalt of the Realm Defense Alliance a secret. Otherwise, don't blame my Realm Defense Alliance for being merciless." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. "Brother Yi, wait." At this moment, Mad Lion's voice came from behind Yi Xian. Genius 1 Second Remember website. Mobile version, you're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.